address and file decision request card to Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, so we have correct information for our records. If you have a written submission that you read from, please hand it in to Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you are done. First, the applicant or agent will make a presentation to the committee of the application as submitted. Then individuals, either in support or opposed to the application, will be allowed to speak. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your voices. However, covering the same points will not advance your cause. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker at the end of their presentation or submission. When all speakers are finished, the applicant has an opportunity to rebut only the related issues that were raised. The matter will then be taken into the committee for a decision. This will mark the end of all discussion. Please remember to confine your comments to the matters outlined in the application. The decision. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may file an appeal. Almost all appeals will be dealt with by a new tribunal called the Toronto Local Appeals Body, or TLAB. For more information on TLAB, please visit TLAB website or the CFA website. Appeal instructions will be included at the bottom of every decision. In order to receive a copy of the committee's decision and to be informed of all appeals procedures, you must fill out the decision request card referred to earlier, which I believe are available at the end of these horseshoes. Please include your email address, as the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. Please leave your completed form with Deputy Secretary Treasurer or a member of his staff who are seated on my right, and decisions will be mailed within 3 business days. Okay, so now we will move forward with the confirmation of meeting minutes. Panel members? Okay, I will need a motion to...
Okay, I'll move a motion to adopt the minutes, Madam Chair.
Okay, motion to adopt the minutes have been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder?
No, second.
Mr. Carlson, all in favor? Okay, the meeting minutes have been adopted. Are there any declaration of interest for this time slot? No, not at this time. Okay. Madam Deputy Secretary, are there any files to be closed?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Are there any applicants today who wish to withdraw their applications at this time? Okay, so last note, please note that the committee will not be entertaining any extensive revisions to the applications at the hearing today. If you do have revisions, we ask you to, we will defer the application to ensure that all revisions are accurate and that all interested parties are informed of the changes. Okay, so now I'll first vet the agenda. Item number 1, 1258 Broadview Avenue. Do we have the agent or applicant? Okay, do we have any interested parties? We do? Okay, so this item will be held, and once again, we advise you to step outside and discuss any outstanding matters. Item number 2, 110 Crescent Road, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Item number 355 Glen Road, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Item number 4, 424 Euclid Avenue, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Item number 5, 222 Forest Hill Road, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Item number 6, 205 DeGrassi Street, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Oh, there's one? Okay. So once again, we advise you to step outside to discuss any matters. 228 Lonsmount Drive, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Yes. Okay. So the item will be held as well. So if you can please step outside to discuss any outstanding matters. Item number 8, 243 Spingdale Boulevard, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Nope. Number 9, 526 Bloor Street West, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Number 10, 10 Hilltop Road, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Number 11, 184 Westminster Avenue, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? Number 12, 96 Howard Park Avenue, agent or applicant. Any interested parties? You're together? In favor, okay. Number 13, 418 Ontario Street, Adrian applicant. Number 13, 418 Ontario Street. Okay, so we'll just hold that down. Number 14, 154 Gough Avenue, Adrian applicant. Any interested parties? Okay, so that item will be held. Once again, we advise you to step outside with the agent. Number 15, 49 Doncaster Avenue, Adrian applicant. Any interested parties? Number 16, 85 Boulton Drive, Adrian applicant. Number 16, item number 16, 85 Boulton Drive. Not yet. Item number 17, 325 Euclid Avenue, Adrian applicant. Any interested parties? And number 18, 307 Pape Avenue, Adrian applicant. Any interested parties? Okay, so we'll proceed with item number 2. Are you the agent?
85 Bolton.
For 85 Boulton? Okay, Suze. Okay. And you're the agent, is that correct? Is there anyone else here for item number 16, 85 Boulton? No? Okay, so we'll proceed with item number 2, 110 Crescent Road. So if you can please introduce yourself and your address. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a decision, C of A decision affecting the subject property. We also have staff reports from Urban Forestry and the Heritage Preservation Services. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we're proposing to construct a one-story bay.
If you can just introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. My name is Enzo Locasano. I am the agent for this application. We're proposing to construct a one-story addition at the rear of the building. As you can see, the variances are very minor in nature. There's no implication on any of the neighbors. We actually have a letter from 112 Crescent Road having no opposition to this proposal.
So just to confirm, you're proposing a rare two-story addition.
But the two-story is not included as part of the variances. It's really just the bay addition that creates the variance.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Enzo, why do you need that length of 20.26 is 3.26 meters longer than is required in the bylaw?
It's just to extend the living room space, because as you can see, the kitchen has no eating area. So now from the kitchen, there's an eating area. So we've had to extend the living room back into that bay window area.
How does that fit in with the one that's beside you on the north side? Next, 1112.
Yes.
How does it fit in with 1112? Is it the same length or is it?
It's approximately the same length. Yes, they're all in line.
Okay. And you're adding approximately 128 square feet.
Right, and as you can see, there's no GFA or FSI requirement here.
Okay, panel members.
There's very little impact.
Okay, panel members, any other questions? If not, discussion or a motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that this is a very straightforward application. In my opinion, the variances are minor. What's being proposed fits within the character of the neighborhood, meets the 4 tests. Therefore, I would move approval, including the conditions in the Heritage Preservation Report dated May 23rd, 2018, as well as forestry condition number 1.
Okay, so a motion to approve, including the outline condition, has been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder? Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we move forward with item number 3, 55 Glen Road? If we can have the agent or applicant please come up.
Again.
So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We also have a staff report from Community Planning and Heritage Preservation Services. So if you can once again introduce yourself.
It's Enzo Locasano.
Okay, panel members, would you like a presentation? It's a rare one-story addition.
Correct, and we understand the planner wants to restrict it to the one-story addition, which we're fine with.
Okay, you're speaking to the planning condition?
The planning condition, that's correct.
Okay.
Could you, I just would like
Yeah.
to speak to the landscaping variance, if you
The
could.
landscaping is actually existing. We're not touching it at all. We're building right on top of that existing terrace that's there. The previous addition and landscape work was already taken care of by another application. So none of the landscaping is being touched here.
So it's an existing condition?
It's an existing condition, yes.
And your variance, speak to the length and depth of variance number 1 and number 2, please. 8.4 meters, what's there?
What's there? That'll become the family room.
So
Because
you know-
there's as you can see in the photo on the right-hand side where the the 4-panel doors, that's the kitchen. And then right beside it will be the dining room, and then we will create the family room at the back. The existing foundation structure is already there. All we're doing is enclosing half of it and maintaining half of the terrace.
Okay, panel members, any other questions? Okay, if not, discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair, I must say I'm a little bit concerned about the length that he's looking for here. It's the requirement is length of 17 meters. He's looking for 8.4 meters beyond the requirement, which makes it 25.4 meters. And I wonder if that is in effect minor. He is moving, the depth is another 7.76 meters. And I'm concerned about the length and the depth, whether they're actually minor. That's my comments.
Okay, I was just going to highlight that the planning report, the staff report, speaks to this issue, and what they emphasized, including a condition to limit the addition to 1 floor.
Correct.
To make sure that there isn't that impact on massing and it doesn't cause a build-out of 2nd floor as well.
Because, Madam Chair, any addition...
Sorry, we're...
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And the only thing I would like to add is that it's not a full addition in the rear, it's only partial, so in terms of impact on neighbors, that's also, it'll be more on number 51 rather than 57. Okay, any other comments?
If there are no further comments, I would be prepared to move approval, as I feel that there is no impact on the neighborhood in terms of what already exists there. And the size of this house, it meets the 4 tests. So I would move approval, including, once again, conditions. So the condition outlined in the May 30th planning report, as well as the heritage condition in the May 23rd report.
Okay, so a motion to approve has been moved by Ms. Oman, including the 2 outline conditions. Do we have a seconder? Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? Okay. So the application has been approved. Thank you.
Very much.
Item number 4, 424 Euclid Avenue. If we can have the agent applicant please come up. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the cover letter from the agent. We have staff reports from community planning and urban forestry. We have support and correspondence and support from 426 Euclid Avenue. And then we have correspondence and concern/interest from 436 Euclid Avenue and 397 Manning Avenue. If you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Good morning. My name is Jackie Bartlett, and I'm an agent on behalf of the applicant. The property is 424 Euclid Avenue. So I'd first like to hand up, I have a quick document brief and some updated plans that have been revised since the application was submitted.
Okay. Sure, so if you can please come up and then give us a presentation, then if you're submitting. So these are new plans?
Yes.
How many changes will be happening to the application?
So much of the material in this document brief was already submitted. It's just for ease of reference.
Okay. So the only thing to know is that, like, this material that was submitted, we received it this morning, so we didn't have much time to look through it.
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay, so if you can, perhaps before you begin, if you can give us a quick summary of how many variances will be impacted by the changes that you're proposing?
Yes, so the changes were made in response to the city planner's letter or report dated May 30th, 2018. So there are changes made to the first variance requested under the new zoning bylaw. So the floor space index requested will be 1.23 times the area of the lot.
Does you have a notice of public hearing altered for us so that we can?
Would you have a notice of public hearing that's already altered with the changes so we can hand it in to staff members?
I do have one that we can just put up if you like.
Sure. And then if you have an extra copy, if you can please give it to Madame Secretary Treasurer. So if you can just flip that.
I can.
120.
So the first variance was reduced, the FSI was reduced to 1.23 from 1.28. And it'll be 284.26 square meters. The third variance requested under the new zoning bylaw, we've reduced the depth of the third floor addition from 21.33 meters to 18 meters in accordance with the city planner's comments. And there are corresponding changes to the variances requested under the old zoning bylaw. So the first variance, the gross floor area will be 1.65 times the area of the lot, or 381.57 square meters. And the variance number 7.
Sorry, can you just give me the square meters again?
Yep, sorry. It's 381.57 square meters.
Okay.
And then under number 7, under the old zoning bylaw, 19% of the area of the lot, or sorry, pardon me. The converted house will have an area equal to 0.355 times the area of the lot, which is 82.06 square meters.
Variance number 7 on the bylaw, 438.86, so 0.355 times, which is equal to which is equal to, can you repeat that number again?
Yeah, it's 0.355 times the area of the lot, which is 82.06 square meters.
Okay, so maybe if I'll go through the changes. So variance number 1 on the bylaw 569/2013 is going to be changed to 1.23 times, which is 284.26 meters square.
Yep.
Variance number 3 under bylaw 569/2013, it will be changed to 18 meters.
Yeah, that's 18.
So the depth that's being changed is just of the third floor rear addition.
Okay, so number 3 is not changed.
But the first and second stories remain 21.33 meters.
So then variance number 1 on the bylaw 438/86 will be changed to 1.65 times, which is 381.57 meters squared.
Yep.
And then also variance number 7 on the bylaw 438/86 will be changed to 0.355 times, which is 82.06 meters squared.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you're changing 3 variances then.
Yes.
Okay, so number 3 under bylaw 569/2013 is staying as 21.33.
Yes, but I'll get to it in turn, but as you can see from the updated plans here, the third floor addition, it's going to be 18 meters in depth as opposed to 21.33, which was one of the planner's main concerns with this application.
So if you tie it to the plan.
Yeah, so we'll have to tie it to the plans.
Can please file those revisions he did, because I didn't get any of that.
So if you can just take us through the revisions then.
No, file it.
Oh, if you can file the revisions, but also if you can just give us a very quick presentation of what
Yes,
you're
for
doing
sure.
with them.
I'd like to go through each variance in turn, just quickly. So for the first variance requested, the FSI, the existing house on the property was built in 1892, and it has an existing gross floor area of 0.93, and the proposed house will have a GFA of 1.23, down from 1.28 of the original application. So I've included at tab C of the document brief a list of decisions regarding neighboring homes on Euclid, where the FSI of the homes ranges from 1.01 to 1.81. So we submit that the proposed GFA represents a minor variance compared to the existing house's GFA and compared to neighboring homes.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions?
Can you speak to the prevalence of walkouts on Euclid?
Yes. Do you mind if I'll get there in 1 minute. The second variance requested the height of the side exterior main wall. The proposed height of the side exterior main wall facing a side lot line is 11 meters. This is below the peak height of the main wall facing, of the existing house, which is 11.07 meters. So this is a more technical variance as it's only required for the portion of the side walls for the rear addition. In regards to the third variance requested, building depth, the depth of the first 2 stories is proposed to match the depth of the adjoining property, 426 Euclid. In regards to the third floor addition, the applicant had originally proposed a depth of 21.33 meters, but we've since reduced the plan to 18 meters, which you can see up on the overhead. The summary of relevant decisions at tab C of the document brief indicates that the average depth range of the homes on Euclid ranges from 18.8 to 22.92. So we believe that the 18-meter proposal is reasonable. There are 5 other 3-story homes on Euclid which have rear addition depths of more than 18 meters, and 18 meters is only 1 meter beyond what's stipulated under the new zoning bylaw. The property's lot is also deep. It's approximately 40 meters, and it's bordered by a lane to the rear. So it will maintain the light, views, and privacy for the neighboring residents. In regards to the fourth variance requested, the width of the exterior stairs, the proposed front stairs will have a width of 2.3 meters, which is a variance which is minor compared to the what's stipulated under the new zoning bylaw of 2.0 meters. In regards to the fifth variance requested, building height, the 3-story front facade of the existing house has a height of 11.07 meters, and the main height variance requested for the building as a whole recognizes this existing condition. And then finally, the sixth variance requested is the exterior alterations to the front. The only exterior alteration applied for is the front walkout to serve as the principal exit for the secondary suite to be built in the basement. The front walkout was the second of the planner's 2 concerns with this application. The applicant is planning on 2 exits, firstly for safety reasons, and secondly to allow for potential plans for her to use a rear portion of the basement for her own use, and then use that back exit. Front walkouts and secondary units are very much within the character of other homes in the neighborhood. Many of the surrounding homes have additional units built into the basement or the upper stories. As you'll see from tabs A1 and A2 of the document brief, and the photos that were enclosed with Mr. Cantor's letter dated June 4th, 2018, first floor walkouts are very common on both sides of Euclid. And that tab reference again was A1 and A2.
So how many properties did you find on the street that had front basement walkouts?
So I counted at least 8, and we've enclosed photos, I believe, of 6 different walkouts on the street. Some of them are better concealed than others, but the applicant proposes to tastefully and effectively hide the walkout by planting soft landscaping and shrubs around it. In regards to support from neighbors, the neighbors most affected by the proposal, those at 426 Euclid, provided a letter of support of our application, which was included with the documents, and it's at tab B of the document brief.
Okay.
Those
are the party wall neighbors, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so if you can just quickly wrap up, and then we'll go directly into any other questions.
Yep. So in summary, we submit that the variances meet the 4-part test under Section 45 of the Planning Act. The proposal maintains the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaw. It maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. It respects and reinforces the existing physical character of the neighborhood regarding height, massing scale, and dwelling type. It's appropriate for the development of the land and/or the building. And the variances requested are minor and will have no significant impact on any neighbor or the public realm. We believe these variances are well in keeping with the changes in the neighborhood. Are there any questions?
Okay. Panel members? So the existing FSI is 0.93, right?
Yes.
So it's already over the allowable.
Yes, the house was built in 1892, I believe.
Okay. Okay, panel members. How about in terms of the open landscaping, open space landscaping? Is that an existing condition, or because of the basement, front basement walkout, you're eliminating some of that open landscaping? So this is variance number 10 under bylaw 43086.
This will be a new variance, yes.
Panel members?
I would point out to the panel that the reduction on the 3rd story is not as large as planning was asking for.
So what was asking for 15 meters?
Yeah.
Are we in committee, or are we?
Well, if there's
guess
no more questions.
I have one other question with related to the basement access. You're not able to conceal that in a vestibule, as stated in the planning report?
I'm Enzo Locaseno. I'm also the agent on the application. I'm the technical guy.
Right, so one of the concerns of planning were the depth, which you've reduced, and as my colleague pointed out, not to what planning wants, and then they also talk about the basement, the entrance.
The basement is based on the front walkout because it triggers that variance that's in the new bylaw. So any change to a converted dwelling.
I'm talking about the entrance, like it's
Well, that's what he's talking about.
right? So,
It's the
yeah.
walkout from the basement.
But I think what the planning report is proposing is to have the entrance internally within the building rather than externally.
No, that's not possible because just of the height difference, you can't just walk in. at some point you need stairs to get down into the basement.
Right, and quite often we see applications where the stairs have actually, they're internal
Yeah, because
rather than
some
external,
people,
is
what
what
they
I'm
do is they
asking.
cut it out of the front porch, which you see a lot of on Euclid. So whether they have porches right across the width of the building, they will actually cut the porch in half and then forcibly internally go under the porch to make it look like it's internal. But you can't have an internal stair into the basement because, one, we don't have accessibility to the sides of the building to get into the apartment, because on the north side we're attached, on the south side we're only 0.4 meters to the property line. So the building code does not allow us to put a side door entry. So the only entry point is either through the front to get to the basement, which is only through a walkout basement.
Okay.
And in relation to the length of the building, what the planner is requesting, he's requesting something on an old bylaw, which is 14 meters, which is not realistic and not reasonable. We should be using the new bylaw, which is the 17 meters, and the 18 meters is based on a minor variance based on that. Because he's requesting 15 meters. I don't know why he threw a number at it, but he shouldn't even be relating to the old bylaw of the 14 meters anyway.
So the reason for the 15 meters is that they argue that that's the consistent form in the neighborhoods. That third stories are typically step back from the rear and usually measure 15 meters.
Which is why we cut it back 9 feet, in order to step that back, which now is in line with what people are doing in the area. I don't know where he got the 15 meters from, because it doesn't show up on any of the variances that were previously applied. We reviewed over 279 applications within the area, and none of them say 15 meters for the third floor.
Okay. Panel members, any other questions? If not, we'll go in committee. Discussion? Would anyone like to start? Or a motion?
Okay. Through you, Madam Chair. I mean, when I looked at the variances, there's quite a number of them. In flipping through this document that we were given and looking at previous decisions, the length request depth doesn't seem to be really out of character. And the applicant has also said that there are, at least 8 on the street basement entrances, and they've also provided evidence of that. So with the revisions and tying it to fence, I don't feel that what's being proposed is out of character in this neighborhood. So those are my comments.
I would agree and would add the planning report is giving me pause, but I am having difficulty understanding the basis of it in terms of what's actually on the ground.
I mean, the only thing I would like to add, there is support from the party wall neighbor, which I think is quite important, and I think they have done a good job in terms of adjusting their additions to the party wall neighbor and having that consistent rear wall.
The examples provided appear to be in proximity to this application in terms of the basement entrances, the pictures. They're clearly there, so I agree with Mr. Carlson. I'm a little bit mystified at the planning report as well.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, a motion?
Well, through you, Madam Chair, I would be prepared to move approval of this application based on the comments I already made. And I would include forestry condition number 1. And then the revisions, revising variance number 1 to read 1.23 times the area of the lot, which is 284.26 square meters. Variance number 1 under the old bylaw to read 1.65 times the area of the lot, which is 381.57 square meters. And variance number 7 under that bylaw to read 0.355 times the area of the lot, which is 82.06 square meters. And then tying it to these plans, June 5th,
Yes, thank you.
2018.
Okay.
That were filed at the public hearing today by the applicant. So that's my motion, Madam Chair.
In that form, I will second it.
Okay. So a motion to approve the amended variance application, including the outline condition, has been moved by Mr. Ullman, second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? Okay, so the amended application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anita, do you have these plans?
And do you have the revised public notice? Okay. Okay, so we'll proceed with item number 5, 222 Forest Hill Road. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the cover letter from the agent. We have a decision, C of A decision affecting the subject property. We have staff reports from Development Engineering, Urban Forestry, and then we have 3 form letters in support from addresses on Dunvegan, Forest Hill, and Dunvegan Road. Okay, if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Thank you. My name is Jane Pepino, and I represent the applicant today.
Okay. Panel members, would you like a presentation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's going to be a bit of a hike back and forth to the overhead. I apologize. The application is based on the, in large measure, on the site itself. Thank you. As the committee can see, there are 2 or 3 angularities with respect to this lot. The first is that it's a corner lot, and the house, therefore, both existing, which is shown in brown, and proposed, which is shown in green on this on the overhead, is really oriented to what the bylaw considers flankage. So we've got the flankage frontage debate. Secondly, the topography. If the committee members have had an opportunity to view the site, you will know that the site goes up from Forest Hill to the rear lot line, or the southish lot line. And second, so that the grade at the rear or the west is exposed at the east or the front. And secondly, the site drops from the west property line, the one that's at the top of this sketch, down to the south to Larrett Street. And finally, as you can see, the lot is not rectangular. Not only does it have the rounded corner widening at the corner, but it narrows as it proceeds to the south along Narrett. So the variances, the first have to do with the maximum number of stories, and as I'm sure the committee appreciates, if we can go to the last page on that section, just by way of demonstration, due to the topography, the house is effectively what could be called a side split. In other words, what Mr. Swadron, who is the house designer, is showing you here is that the property line to the west is on the right, and then you can see the site going down to Larrett. And if you go to the second to last section on this set, you can see also what is effectively from the Forest Hill frontage on the right-hand side, moving up to the rear yard on the left, if you were standing on Larrett looking north through the site. And as you can see, the result of that is the bylaw calculates what otherwise would be the basement and what is in fact at ground level and below grade at the rear as a third story. So that speaks to the first, the variances with respect to number of stories. With respect to the maximum permitted building length, if I could ask you to go to the second page in the handout, you will see that the building length and building depth variances are based on the fact that the basement sticks out or is above grade on the east as it fronts Forest Hill. And that is just the way the bylaw operates when looking at the definition of established and finished grade. With respect to the next clutch of variances, which have to do with the maximum permitted floor space index, the interpretation of the bylaw is that it's 1.11 times the area of a lot, but that is based on the fact that the basement is included. And if one were to remove the basement, the total is 581.5 meters squared, or 0.7, which is very typical of this neighborhood. With respect to the issue of side yard setbacks, again looking at this, the variances for the side yard setback for the dwelling are at a pinch point, just as the house, thank you very much, Mr. Swadron, in that location. And if you review the comparison with respect to the existing house, it too has a proximity closer to Larritt than the bylaw would otherwise permit. Secondly, the other side yard setback variance is with respect to the pool setback. And again, if you look at the second page of the handout, the variance is set out there, but I can say to you that the pool is in fact further from the rear yard and no different from the existing side yard than the existing pool. I'm sorry, that's not shown on the first outline. So that is the final set of variances that are required. The others have to do with the platforms. Those are variances 5 and 6. And the first platform is in fact an at-grade terrace. And the second platform, which is described in paragraph 6, or variance number 6, as a rear third-story platform, is in fact is on the second floor and is entirely within and internal to the, as a walkout in this location, just a walkout from the bedroom. So it does not extend beyond the rear of the building, but rather is tucked into it.
Okay.
Unless there are questions, those are my submissions to you.
Thank you.
I would actually like you to address the forestry report.
Yes, indeed. We're aware of that. We're happy to accept those conditions. There has not yet been an application filed, but there has been an arborist report. And with respect to the one key tree, which is the city-owned tree, we're advised it's in fair condition and it has some structural defects with respect to the way the trunk is formed. It's also had significant ice storm damage. So we know there has to be an application for those trees to be removed. We also understand that the compensation will typically be 1-for-1. Those are all acceptable conditions. And I should also say I am aware of the ECS report, but that was way back in March. Since that time, the house was redesigned to provide, as the sections show, a positive slope on the driveway.
Any members, any other questions?
So, including basement, but we've been concerned about these basement extensions before, even when they are fully below grade. I have real issues with the overall scale of the structure for the lot. And that's acknowledging that the zoning doesn't reflect what's actually in the area, but at the end of the day, we have 0.35 authorized.
Any other comments?
Although I understand what my friend is saying, but although he's saying that about the size, it's not. If you look on the neighborhood, if you go through Forest Hill and look at the neighborhood, it's not excessively different from what can be found there. And in all fairness to the applicant, we the question was not asked with regards to what the size is, and so to make a determination on a question that was never asked, I think it would be an unfair activity.
So would you like, I'm willing to step out of the committee if you want to ask another question of the agent.
No, not me. I don't have a problem with it. My friend has a problem with it. I'm prepared to support the application.
Well, my main concern was the trees because as Mr. Russell said, this area has a lot of very large homes. So I don't feel that what's being proposed is out of character with the neighborhood. And I would be able to support the application.
And from my perspective, I agree with Ms. Oman and Mr. Russell. Excluding the basement, the FSI would be 0.7, which I think is quite appropriate for the area. Actually, my main concern was the very modern design of the building, which I would say doesn't necessarily go along with the general character of traditional homes in the area. But in terms of the variances, I think a lot of them are quite technical in nature due to the lot topography and lot structure size. Okay, if there's no more discussion, then I'll need a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the application be accepted in that it has met the 4 tests. The forestry conditions, I believe that the applicant has addressed that they're prepared to work with that, and so I'd move for, because the below grade condition is not all the character of the neighborhood, I move for acceptance of the application with the urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
And how about the development engineering?
And development engineering.
Okay, so motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Russell, including the 2 outline condition. It has been seconded by Ms. Oman. All in favor? Okay, dissent?
I dissent.
Okay, Mr. Carlson dissents.
Thank you, committee.
Yeah, thank you. The application's been approved. So item 6 is being held. Item 7 is also being held. Item number 8, 243 Spingdale Boulevard. If we can have the agent please come up. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the cover letter from the agent. We have a C of A decision affecting the subject property. We have staff reports from urban forestry. We have number of letters of support from various addresses on Springdale as well as Milverton. And then we have 10 form letters in support from, once again, various addresses on Springdale. Hey, if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
My name's Grant Houston. I'm the applicant, not the agent. My address is 245 Springdale Boulevard.
Okay, panel members, would you like a presentation?
I just need some clarification from Mr.
Okay, so we'll go directly into questions.
Mr. Olson, can you just clarify that side yard setback you're looking on variance number 4? What is there presently?
Sorry?
The number 4, variance number 4.
Yep.
What is there presently?
There is nothing there currently. In the neighborhood, the houses are very close. Maybe you can put up the pictures down. That's upside down. This is 260 and 258 Springdale Boulevard. Between the houses, it's about 0.4 meters. So brick to brick, that's not going from the eaves to the house. So they are very close, like 0.2 away. There's another house directly across our street, which is very close. Again, it's about 0.4 meters between the houses. And if you put up the map of the area, I'll just point out quickly. This is our property here. So there's houses that close here, 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 and here. So it is very common in the neighborhood for the houses to be so close.
I guess that answers my questions. Answer my other question.
So there's nothing on the lot right now. It's just a carport, basically. So the land is basically underutilized right now.
And so have you submitted or your agent has submitted a cover letter with various C of A decisions?
I submitted that letter, yes.
Oh, you've submitted, okay.
Yeah. So that letter compares what we submitted. We were back here in October. We've made substantial changes to the design. We had a 3-story design, went to a 2-story design. We greatly reduced the FSI, greatly reduced the wall height to be reflective of the comments we received from the committee last time we were here.
Okay. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, if there are no other questions, I move for approval of this application in that has met the 4 tests. I had some previous concerns, but I was with other bylaws, but it's quite clear how the location is and what the buildings are. Nothing in this shows that it's vastly out of the character of the neighborhood, and I move that it's in agreement with city zoning bylaw, and so with inclusive of urban forestry, condition number 3.
Okay, so a motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Russell, including forestry condition number 3. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? So the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move forward with item number 9, which is 526 Bloor Street West. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevation. We also have a staff report from the TTC. Okay, if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Good morning. My name is Trevor Gain. I'm the applicant here on behalf of the owner. The proposal you have in front of you is a fairly simple little minor variance as far as we're concerned. It's an existing mixed-use building, 3 stories. The existing 3rd floor extends about maybe half of the parcel of land, and we're looking, and there's kind of a 2nd floor addition at the back. We're going to clean off the back of that 2nd floor, extend it back, put the 3rd floor across, and introduce an additional pair of apartments. There's 2 apartments in the building right now. There'll be 4 in total, and we just have a couple minor variances associated with this development. One is parking, and there's also a spatial separation. We're 100% of the lot, so we just cannot provide parking. We're on Bloor, so we got fantastic access to all TTC. We're providing bicycle parking in the back for the tenants. The TTC station, Bathurst station, is right in the backyard. They could literally jump off the roof and land on the station if they wanted to. So it's right there. The TTC conditions is pretty standard just because of the screening, so we have no problems with that. All in all, we think it's minor, and we wish to seek approval.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, do you have any questions? Okay, if no questions, discussion or motion?
Well, just a question for...
Okay.
Between the main walls, you're moving from 11 meters requirement to 1.52 meters.
Yeah, this is not a pair of towers. So if you look at the 2nd floor plan, what we did, we just created a little light well just for the bedrooms, and that's where that variance comes in. So without that light well, we would have no natural lighting in the bedrooms.
Okay.
So that's it's just part of the zoning bylaw. So like I said, if we had more land and we had a pair of towers, then we would need the 11 meters between towers essentially, but this is it's just a light well.
Okay, and the adjacent buildings have a 2-story or addition, and one is 3 stories, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
All the way back?
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, a motion or discussion?
Go ahead.
I approve of the application as I believe it's in keeping with conditions in the area and is entirely appropriate to the site.
I'll second.
Okay, including the TTC advisory?
TTC advisory.
Okay. So a motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Carlson, second by Ms. Oman. All in favor? So the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move forward with item number 10, 10 Hilltop Road. The committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. And if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Yes, members, good morning. My name is Frank Bellini. I'm here to represent the clients.
Okay, panel members, would you like a presentation? No. It's a rear and south side 2-story additions. Okay, if no presentation, we'll go directly into questions.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Bellini.
Yes.
Your length. I'm just wondering about your length, how that backyard affects the other ones behind there.
I have to also add, I have a petition in support and a verbal from the neighbor on the other side. So if I can present that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, if you can please send it in to me. So the support includes the adjacent neighbors or directly adjacent neighbors?
They didn't write, they just verbally said we have no objection.
Okay.
And the one in the rear has signed. So.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Essentially, if you look at the what we're proposing, the addition, it's 17, with the new house, it's about 17.11 meters. The requirement is 17, but because of they have a small bump out at the front of the existing house, which is less than 3 meters wide by 0.68 meters in depth, that extends our length. Otherwise, we're within keeping with the bylaw, essentially. And the other variance with respect to depth includes the front of the sidewalk of the porch at the front and the proposed porch at the rear, due to the fact that it's greater than 1.2 meters high. So we're only higher by 0.27 meters, I think.
Yeah. Under the old bylaw, you're required to have it speaks to a side lot line of 7.5 meters, but you're going down to 0.9 meter on the south side and 1.25 meter on the north side.
Yeah, I want to clarify as well. Our addition is 1.2 meters on either side. I think they took the garage, which is existing, as 0.9. So when you look at our length past 17 meters, we're 17.11 meters long. So that 0.11 meters is what's triggering that setback of 7.5. But if you look at where actually the length in relationship to that bylaw, we're not that much longer than what is allowed, 17 meters.
My questions.
Okay, any other questions? Not discussion or a motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, from what I could see, one of the houses next door is longer. I feel that what's being proposed meets the 4 tests, fits within the context of the neighborhood, and I would move approval of the application.
Okay, so a motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Oman. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Russell, all in favor?
Thank you very much.
Application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 11, 184 Westminster Avenue. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the cover letter from the applicant, as well as we have a staff report from Urban Forestry. If you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Cindy Stiller, an owner and applicant. I'm going to pass out to you just quickly a revised variance notice from Roberto. On the initial one that went out to everyone, it included a front addition, which was an error on his behalf. So we just removed the front addition part.
Do you have the notice of public hearing? Yeah. Public hearing is what we use.
Sorry.
It's actually not a changed variance.
It's just the
it's in the
purpose of
description.
Yeah, so the purpose of the application, so there is no front second floor additions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're only doing a rear second floor additions and your rooftop, a rear ground floor deck.
So I can give you one of these that he rewrote, and it says proposed new roof for the detached house, new front bay window, new rear deck. So it's less than what was initially
The front bay window
written.
might be considered an addition.
Wait, rear deck?
Do you want to see his notice that he redid?
We just want to know how the notice of public hearing has changed. So we said that you were doing a front and rear second floor addition. Are you still doing a rear second floor addition?
Correct.
How about the first?
And a new roof and a rear ground floor deck?
Correct.
Okay, and a detached garage?
It
It's just
exists.
going to be staying the same. So the front addition is just a bay window?
Correct.
Okay, so just put front bay window.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it was just his description.
Okay, panel members, questions?
Ms. Taylor, just one question for you. How does the height, the new height on the west side, the 8.25, how does that fit in the neighborhood?
How does the height affect?
Fit in with the rest of the neighborhood?
I actually included a map, if you will, of the area where we had a surveyor shoot the different heights, and we're under the majority of the higher homes. They're
If we-
often
just
11,
one second.
12.
If we can have silence in the room, because there's some background noise and it's difficult to concentrate. Yeah, you can continue.
As well, I did the, where you can do the report and you pay for 500 meters around our house, and for the committee has approved a number of much higher homes. These ones actually that we had the surveyor shoot are existing and are substantially over, anywhere from 11 to 12 meters from average grade in my direct neighborhood. We just walked around a couple of streets.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just go through the variances quickly with you?
No, it's okay.
I think
don't need to?
it's fine unless we have any specific questions. Any other questions?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay, discussion or motion?
Madam Chair, I think these variances are truly minor, and in the letter submitted, the height is actually for the peaked roof, which is more in keeping with the style of homes in the neighborhood. So I would be prepared to move approval, including forestry condition number 2.
Okay, so a motion to approve, including the outline condition, has been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder? Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
With the revised purpose.
Yeah.
And forestry.
On the forestry
Yeah.
condition.
Yeah. Okay, item number 12, 96 Howard Park Avenue. The committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We also have the cover letter from the applicant. Sorry. Sure, just one second, sorry. Yes, we'll take them.
So can you read them then into the minute as being something that you've considered?
Okay. 10 letters of support.
Reopen, I
Okay.
guess. Do we have to reopen it? Yeah, we have to reopen it, because we voted already, just reopen.
Is it open to include
Okay, so I
letters?
reopened the last item to include the 10
So
letters of
The
support.
motion would be that we are reopening item number 11 to consider additional documentation.
Not,
Okay.
I just need to have them read into the record so that it's clear.
Okay, so would you like me to read the addresses?
no,
No, just,
say it.
okay, motion to include those in the minutes. And
Okay, so motion to include those in the minutes, but I wouldn't be moving in.
Eh?
Okay.
Okay.
Just, that was considered as
I'll
part
move a
of.
motion to include this documentation submitted into the minutes for item 11.
Okay, so motion to include those additional documentation has been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Carlson, all in favor? Okay. Thank you, sorry. Okay, moving forward, item number 12, 96 Howard Park Avenue. The committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the cover letter from the applicant, and also we have correspondence in support from 23 Euclid Avenue. Okay, if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Certainly. My name is Adrian Latavsky. I'm here as the agent of the applicant, Mr. Brian Bosonitz. He is here today. I do also note that there are two neighbors here in support, one of which lives 2 properties to the east, one of which lives 2 properties to the west. I also have an additional letter of support from the neighbor immediately to the east at 84 Howard Park, which I can provide the committee right now if I can.
That'll be much easier than reopening the item again, as we did.
Okay. The purpose of the application is to allow the completion of a new garden shed at the rear of the property. I have up on the screen just the site plan, that's a simple site plan that shows the square at the rear of the property. It's a little bit hard to see at this resolution. And what happened is Mr. Bosonitz began construction on this shed without realizing at that time that a building permit was required. However, partway through the construction, he learned of that requirement, and as soon as he did so, halted construction and immediately went to the city to apply for the required permit. Through that process, the variances came to light, and that's why, really why we're here today. I do note that there was no infraction or warning provided by the city. He was entirely above board and came here as soon as the requirement was understood. There are really two types of variances before you. One is for a variance from the required coverage for an accessory structure, and the second relates to setbacks, and these are variances under both the existing bylaw as well as the new city bylaw.
Okay.
You have the public notice on before you, so I believe you know and understand what the required variances are. I would, however, like to take one moment. It's mentioned in my covering letter, where I do also provide the standard review of why I believe the four tests are satisfied. But I do note that in variance number 1, I believe there's a small typo I'm going to ask the committee's help to correct. It mentions in the first line that a minimum side yard setback for an ancillary building or structure located in the rear yard is equal to half the height of the ancillary building or structure, 1.49 meters. Then it goes on to say that the detached shed is located 1 meter from the north rear lot line. I believe that that side yard setback reference should say rear yard. That's what it should say. This is all about a rear yard setback requirement under the new bylaw. So I'm going to ask the committee's indulgence to correct that typo.
What wording you like?
Do you want to remove north?
Pardon me, sir?
What wording do you want to?
Oh, just replace side with rear. I think that's
Okay,
all that
then
needs to be
that's
done.
Okay, so north side lot line?
No, forgive me. Right in the first line, it should read the minimum required rear yard setback.
Rear yard.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, but yours, okay, so it's just, we'll change that as a typo.
Okay, then.
Okay, panel members, do we have any questions?
No.
Okay, if there's no questions, discussion or motion?
I will move approval of the application as it is extremely minor in nature and reflects an appropriate development for the site.
Okay, motion to...
As amended.
It's
Because
just a typo.
Typo? Okay.
Okay, so a motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Carlson. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Russell. All in favor? So the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 13. Do we have the agent here for 418 Ontario Street? Yes. Okay. Do we have any parties in interest for 418 Ontario Street? Okay, no, so we'll proceed with this item. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the staff report from Transportation Services, and then we have correspondence in concern from 420 Ontario Street. So if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Hello, my name is Tyrone Lafferty. I'm the agent and representing my client, and work for TBG Design.
Okay, panel members, presentation or questions?
Questions.
Questions, okay.
I would just, sorry to interrupt you. I would like to give you my report and the latest updated notice.
Okay, so has there been a change to the public notice?
Yes, very
What
minor.
do you mean updated public notice? Are you changing a variance or something? Or
Oh, is it in response to Transportation Services report?
That's part of it, yes.
Okay, so maybe if you can give us a present.
It's the rear yard setback.
The rear yard setback.
That still exists as well as with the center line. Thank you.
Okay, so if you can just please outline what variances are being changed. Page 4.
The variances right now, as stated there on the second page, is the rear yard setback, the same as it was, and the eave building setback, the eaves on the roof building setback.
Okay, I'm confused. So you're not changing any variances? This is just an explanation of...
Those are the current variances.
Right, and they're staying the same.
There was a misunderstanding in where the carport starts, because it doesn't start on the fence. The fences are existing, and they're going to stay the way they are, with the garage door existing on that. The carport is separate than all of that, and it's further back than what he stated before. It's really 0.51 meters instead of 0.15 meters.
So, so it is changing. Variance number 1 is changing then.
So variance number.
So are you changing the variance requests that are in this public
Yes, the
notice?
variance request is slightly different, yes.
So are you changing them today, is what I'm asking.
Okay, so if we go through the public notice.
Yes.
Variance number 1, so
Yes.
currently it stands at the new carport will be located at 0.15 meters from the west rear lot line. So you would like that changed to 0.51?
Yes, exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yes, there would be a change, yes.
And then, and there is no variance in the 43086 in that in regards to this?
No.
Okay, so that's the only change in terms of the variances?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So there are only 2 minor variances right now,
Okay, so
minor in nature.
How about this?
yeah, the center line, my question's really related to the transportation report, which wants 2.5 set
Yes.
from the center line.
Yeah, that's not affected now because the garage is actually 0.51 meters back, and so we are offering more space than the transportation services is requiring if they widen the lane.
So do you still need this variances then for the, like the variance number 2 under both bylaws? Do you still need those then?
No.
Can they be deleted?
Yes, yes. All it's
So we
right
can
now is just
revise
the
that
2
to
minor variances.
Take
Yes.
it out of what you're asking for. So
Yes.
we're deleting both variance number 2s for the center.
Deleting variance
Right?
number 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so just to go over this, so we're changing variance number 1, that the new carport will be located 0.51 meters from the west rear lot line, removing variance number 2 and variance under bylaw 2013 and variance number 2 under 43886 that speaks to the required minimum setback from the original lane of public lane being 2.50 meters. Yeah, we're moving that.
Yeah, that's not important right now. But the center line,
That's not needed anymore?
no,
Okay,
exactly.
perfect. Okay, panel members, do we have any other questions? I think that probably solved most of our issues.
Yeah, that would solve
Okay.
my issue, so I would be prepared to move
Do
approval.
we need the transportation report anymore?
No, he's removed the variances, so
So I don't need a transportation report?
no, so
And there's a letter of support from his neighbor.
what's being proposed is indeed minor, meets the 4 tests, and I would move approval, Madam
Sorry,
Chair.
just one second. Sorry, is there a letter of support that you have with you?
Yes, from his neighbor.
If we can have that, because I don't think we have that currently on
Yeah,
file.
actually it is there.
Oh, it's in the package?
It's in the packet.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, just to continue with the motion.
That would be just before the pictures,
Okay.
the examples of existing carports and garages.
Okay, please introduce yourself and your address. And panel members, would you like a presentation? This is a... No? Okay, we'll go directly into question.
Okay, my name's Aldrin Stambuk, I'm the applicant.
Okay.
Could you just talk about the front yard setback? Is that existing, like variance number 1 under the old bylaw?
That's because it's being counted to the front porch, and that's the only reason that kind of archaic variance is around.
And so you're actually building on top of the footprint of the bungalow, is that correct?
So what I've highlighted on the projection screen there, that's the existing house footprint. We're actually moving the house back, and what's there now in the front will be partially filled by the front porch, but that will be open, an open front porch. So the entire house is being shifted back, thus there is no variance under the new bylaw. But because of the nature of the porch, we have a wall enclosing the neighbor side. Under the old bylaw, it's being counted as the front wall of the house.
Okay.
So even though it's an open porch with just one wall, that's where that variance arises from.
Okay. Panel members, any other questions?
No.
Okay, then we're in committee, discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair, I feel that what's being proposed, this area is in transition. Several of the homes are larger and in keeping with what's being proposed. I feel it meets the character of the neighborhood, and I would be prepared to move approval, including forestry condition number 2.
Okay. So a motion to approve, including the forestry condition, has been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Second by Mr. Russell. All in favor? So the application has been approved. Thank you. Item number 16, 85 Boulton Drive. The committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a C of A decision affecting the subject property. If you can please introduce yourself and your address.
My name is Robert Taylor. My address 44 Charles Street, Stouffville.
Okay, panel members, questions or presentation? I think we can go probably directly into questions.
Robert. I think so.
Very.
L-O-R-N.
Okay, panel members, any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
If there is no questions, a discussion, because it's just a deck with a canopy. If not, then we can go directly into motions.
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe this is truly minor, and what's being proposed, the houses they're large homes behind, significant amount of trees in the back. There's no impact with this, so I would move approval.
Okay, so a motion to approve has been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder? Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? The application has been approved. Thank you. Item number 17, 325 Euclid Avenue. The committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. And then if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Oh, hi. My name is David Footman, and I'm the applicant for 325 Euclid.
Okay, panel members, presentations or questions?
Questions.
Okay, we'll go directly into questions since it's a rare two-story deck and addition. Okay. Questions?
Mr. Footman, on your variance number 2, you're seeking 0 side lot line setback on the south side. With required of 0.45 meters. You no space? Are you just going to stay with the 0?
This is the existing condition. We're putting a 3rd floor on the existing house, which is at 0.
And this is a semi, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, how much are you actually adding in terms of space on the 3rd floor?
Well, in terms of actual areas, probably, well...
we have site statistics.
Just on there. I'm not sure, I just have the percentage. We're allowed 0.6, so we're going to 0.71. Okay. So it's quite minor, and it's typical in the neighborhood.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
If not, a motion, discussion or motion?
I move for approval of this application. It's minor in nature.
Okay, a motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Russell. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Oman. All in favor? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Number 18, 307 Pape Avenue. The committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and then we have the cover letter from the applicant. If you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Hall. I'm the applicant and the architect on behalf of the owners.
Okay. Panel members, questions, presentation?
No, it's a very straightforward application.
So there's no external changes, is that correct?
The proposal is to convert the existing attic into a 3rd story, so there's a small addition towards the rear of the 3rd floor. No impact on the front facade.
The rear deck, where are you going to put the deck?
Pardon me?
Where are you putting the deck? Is it on the 3rd floor?
Yes, it's on the 3rd floor at the back. The 3 or 4 houses immediately to the south, whose backyards essentially face. Our neighbor has a laneway to the south of them, and then there's backyards. They actually all have third floor decks. One currently under construction under a permit right now.
In your letter, I'm just curious, you said the privacy concerns were addressed. Can you just tell me how you addressed them?
Yes, we made some changes to the design that have nothing to do with the variances, but I can show you because we just thought it was a better design.
Okay.
We changed the one large window into two higher ones, and we've added a 5-foot-high privacy screen, and these are actually concerns because the neighbors have built decks facing, and my clients are concerned about the neighbors looking at their bedroom.
That's all in your plans like that we have?
It's not subject to the variances. It's no change to variance, and we were advised by the committee staff to not submit it and just to bring it to the hearing if it was of interest.
Okay. And then I think it was in your letter you mentioned that you have written support from the neighbors because you addressed this issue. Is that correct?
Yes, we do, and I believe they were submitted to the committee as part of supporting documentation a while ago.
Yeah, I think your letter, we don't have the actual letters, but it says canvass
okay.
the neighborhood.
I'm sorry, yeah.
We don't have the documentation.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's our mistake. The owners did take a set of drawings and a petition around to the neighbors and got their numerous signatures of support.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought we had submitted that.
Okay, and you don't have that on you?
I don't have a copy, I'm afraid.
So panel members, would you like to tie it to this drawing? Should we?
Can we tie it to that drawing if you submit?
Yeah,
We have no objection. This is what we intend to do. So.
Okay.
I think in terms of justifying our decision.
Especially the screening.
Sir, if you can just...
you could give that to staff.
Elevation. Okay, so tie to site plan.
Would be the revised south elevation.
Okay, panel members, any other questions?
No.
If not, discussion or a motion.
Madam Chair, I think this is very minor. The applicant and the owner have done their due diligence, talking to their neighbors. What they're proposing fits within the character of the neighborhood. So tied to the elevations submitted at the meeting today, I would be prepared to move approval.
Okay, so a motion to approve, including the outline condition, has been moved by Ms. Oman. Do we have a seconder? Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? Okay, so the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we need a break? No? Okay, so we'll continue now with the health items. So we'll begin with item number 1, 1250 Broadview Avenue. So if we can have the agent or applicant and the contesting party sitting on my left. Just right here. Yeah. Okay, so before we begin, I'm going to read what the committee has in front of us. So we have plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the revised site plan received June 5th. We have the cover letter from the planner, Mike Dror. We have CFA decisions affecting number of properties on Broadview, Torrance, and Woodville, and Broadview. We have a staff report from community planning. We have 11 form letters in support from various addresses on Broadview Avenue, Don Valley Drive, Hillside Drive. We have correspondence in concern interest from 69 Hillside, 78 Hillside, 80 Hillside, and 84 Don Valley. And then we have number of letters of opposition from various addresses on Don Valley, Broadview, Hillside Drive, and 3 form letters in opposition from various addresses on Hillside Drive. Okay, so before we proceed, how many of you are applying to speak?
There will be 3 of us speaking. There has been 9 of us here.
Okay, so just make sure not to cover the same points and to stick to the planning application. And then if you can please introduce yourself, your address, and give us a 5-minute presentation.
Sure, thank you.
Also, just one more thing. If you can please fill out the decision request cards and make sure to hand them in to the staff before you speak, that would be great. Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Mike Dror. That's spelled D-R-O-R. I'm a senior planner at Battlefields. I'm here with Leonid Kotov, who's the owner of the site, 1258 Broadview, as well as Mr. Sarouj Kalustian and Tom Soddenpil, who at HSK Design, who are the project architects. My involvement in the file has been to review the plans and variances, meet with planning staff, work with the team to revise the plans that were initially submitted back in October and make a resubmission, I think was back in March. I wrote a cover letter that was part of that application, as well as a follow-up cover letter that addressed some of the concerns that were brought forward by the neighbors to my right. Since there were no objections from planning staff to any of the variances, I would prefer to stick to just the variances that were addressed by the neighbors, unless the committee would like me to go through the variances and so.
Committee, how would you like to proceed? Sorry, if you can just repeat our two options.
Sorry, I was asking if you want me to go over all the variances or just the ones that were addressed by the letters of objection.
Let's just go through the variances that were of concern.
So I would just mention that yes, there were a number or many letters of objection, but there were also about 11 letters of support, including letters of support from the owners to the north, 1260 and 1262, which are the two adjacent properties to the north. The property to the south is abandoned, or appears to be abandoned, and my client wasn't able to meet with those owners. So I'll just go through quickly, as soon as you can put up the site plan. So we're proposing two very minor changes to the plan in response to some of the comments we received. They are to the rear of the property. There were comments requesting that a new fence be built along the rear property line, as well as mature trees planted in order to screen the property and the rear parking area from the properties on the hillside. We are proposing to do exactly that, to put up a new, I think it's a 2-meter tall wooden fence along the rear property line, as well as 5 new mature trees that will be planted. So we submitted this site plan, I believe it was yesterday. We accepted planning condition related to building length as well. Planning wanted to tie the building length variance to the plans, and we have no issues with that. So if I can just go to basically the main objection from the neighbors, which was the issue of the use. So the fact that they prefer to see a duplex, and we are proposing a triplex, essentially. So if you could pull up the map. So the argument that was made was that the area is characterized by detached houses, and this proposal will impact the detached character of the neighborhood. In my opinion, and if you could look at this map here, we want to stress that this site is actually within a neighborhood that is quite eclectic in terms of its uses. It's certainly comprised of many single detached homes, but also semis, row houses, converted dwellings, numerous low-rise apartment buildings. So the dark red is the low-rise apartment buildings which surround the property. There are the semi-detached houses primarily within the Woodville and Torrance to the east, converted dwelling to the north along Fernwood, and some mixed-use and commercial properties along Broadview, as well as the assisted care facility, the St. Joseph property to the north. So what Mr. Kota was trying to do here is to create, sorry, I should also mention that there are a number of what the neighbors have called rooming houses, and are essentially illegal multi-unit dwellings in the area as well. What Mr. Kota was trying to do here is to create a safe, legal 3-unit dwelling through a fair and open process that will include a home for himself, along with 2 new family-sized grade-related flats in unit as well, that are, as we all know, are desperately needed in the City of Toronto. I also want to mention that the city or the area has been changing over time as well. It's not a stable, it's not a static neighborhood. The property in question, as well as the 2 to the north, 1258, 60, and 62, were originally extended all the way back to the Don Valley. But sometime, I think it was 2002, the hillside development was built, which basically severed those properties and extended Hillside Drive further north. Later, 1274, which is that last property, is actually not shown on that map, was also severed in 2, and then properties were built, or houses were built on both sides of Hillside Drive, extending it further.
Sorry, just for the hillside development, are those townhouses?
Those are detached houses. They're built very close to each other. I actually thought they were townhouses when I first looked at the aerial, but they are in fact detached.
Okay.
Very minimal side yard setbacks.
Okay.
They are 3-story townhouses. So the second issue that was brought, and I'll just keep, actually, you know what, switch it, yeah.
Sorry, it's
Sorry, correct.
Sorry, just, yeah, so you're 5 minutes. I apologize because that's your question during presentation. So if you can just quickly wrap up, and then you'll have time during the rebuttal.
Sure. So the other main point that I wanted to make is that the triplex will also fit into the character of the area. The triplex has a single-family detached character to it. If you can put up the elevation of the site, I'll just point to the fact that we're maintaining a pitched roof. A single front door. It's not going to be. It's the single front door. It's built in multiple front doors. Lots of fenestration. Maintaining the front porch. The same building footprint from the front of the street. The only addition to the footprint is at the rear, as well as relocating the parking from the side driveway to the rear of the property. And most of these changes were made in response to city staff comments. Just if I can conclude, I would just say that the variances, both cumulatively and individually, meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. They are desirable for the appropriate development of the property, maintain a general intent and purpose of the official plan, including the neighborhood designation, and maintain a general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and I believe are minor in terms of their impact, which are quite minimal.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so. Should we wait with the questions until we have?
Well, you see, once she answers those questions, then at least the opposition can address them if he's not.
Okay. So if you would like to ask a question.
I want to know about the driveway width, the height of the exterior main walls, the various heights that you're requesting, and also the length that you're going for, 21.43 meters. Those are mine.
So yeah, sure, I can address those. So the driveway width is existing. There's no change to the driveway width in the front yard or in the side yard. The only change, and the only reason why we're asking for a variance, kind of a technical variance. In order to get that second parking space, we've had to expand the driveway in the rear from, I think it was basically to 5.88 in order to allow for a second car to make a turning movement in and out of the property. So while, yes, we're asking for a variance from both bylaws, that variance will allow for a second parking space to be located on site and will not be seen from the street, as the only change is to the rear of the property. I would also mention that the property to the north, 1260, has even a larger parking area and a driveway at the rear that extends the majority of the site. And I think there might be even another one in the area, but I can't think of it at the moment.
What about height?
And in terms of height, we are requesting a height variance to an overall height of 9.0 meters. There are several examples in the neighborhood of where that's been permitted, or a height very similar to that. And I'll just refresh my memory, but I believe at 57 Torrance was approved at 9.1 meters. Just give me 1 second. 1262, 2 houses to the north, was approved at 10.6. And the only ones that I've included here, the precedents that I've cited here, are only ones that have the same zoning, the R1C underlying zoning. I haven't looked at any houses that don't fall under that same zoning, just for comparison.
Building length.
It's also an example on 16 Woodville, where a dwelling was built to a height of 8.98 meters, which isn't quite 9, but it's only 0.2 or 2 centimeters off of that height. In terms of the main wall height, we are asking for a variance for that as well. But I would mention that the 8. I'm just going to go back to my notes here. My apologies. So the proposed main wall height is 8.55 meters, but that's only for a small portion of the rear of the property. Essentially, there's a dormer at the rear of the property that allow access, or kind of fire access to the 3rd-story unit, and that portion of the main walls increase or go up to a height of 8.55. However, the majority of the main walls, I believe, and Mr. Ruji, you have the number, but it's this main wall height aside from that one portion. It's 7.56, so quite lower than 8.55.
And then in terms of the depth or length of the house, you're willing to meet the planning staff condition?
Absolutely.
The third floor maximum building length being 16.99 meters, exclusive of stairs and balcony. Second and ground floor maximum length of 18 meters, exclusive of stairs and balcony.
Yeah, we met with planning staff when I first started working on a project, and that was the kind of the direction from planning staff was that if you can give us something on the top floor to bring it to generally within the the permission, and then if you increase the lower floors a little bit, it's not a big deal. And we are fine with tying it all to the plans as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll now move forward with the contesting parties. So if we can have the first speaker please come up, introduce themselves and their address.
Hello, committee. My name is Michelle Biddle, and I live at 83 Hillside Drive, and that would be the road that's parallel, kind of behind where the property's being looked at. I wanted to kind of talk about a key tenet of this, which would really be, if you look back at the Broadview Avenue planning study that was, they received a final report in June 7, 2016, and it was basically people of the Broadview community getting together and deciding, you know, what kind of an area do they want to have. And I think what came out of this was, the official plan was, and this is as stated, character area E, which is the area we're talking about, is the area north of Hillside Drive and Bader Avenue up to O'Connor Drive. This area can be characterized as stable residential with single detached houses being the main built form. If we look at the statement, stable residential, stable means really not subject to a sudden or extreme change. Well, putting a triplex into that particular area is certainly, to me, a big change, as well as the fact that 17 variants are needed in order to get it into that area. If we look around the area and you look at all the different buildings that are outside of being a single detached home, you'll see an assortment of different buildings as they showed on the map up here. But a lot of those have been there for years and years. So in the last few years, nothing has really come up nothing has really come up in the area. The density of the area, if you look at the density, it's mainly the single family detached homes. So I think the spirit and intent of this is that we really need to keep the characteristics of that particular area as is. I think that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, do we have any questions? No, thank you very much. Okay, if we can have the next neighbor come up. Yes, if you can head into staff members, please.
Hi there, I'm Nicole Bendeley, and this is Jason Groves, and we are at 77 Hillside, directly behind the Broadview property. So we have a couple of main concerns as sharing the back fence. When we purchased this home, obviously this was a single dwelling home behind us. We fully support the comments from Michelle, so I won't go over those again. We have a few key concerns, one being the parking in the back. With the cars coming in and going, the lights going directly into our home. Our main floor is also 12 feet above ground level, and so those trees will not necessarily block our view of that parking. And so we have concern with the lights. We have significant concerns with the triplex and the number of additional residents that will be added to that property. It's not a large property, and there will only be a minimum amount of green space as a result of that parking lot. And that green space will be at the very back of the property. And so it could have, I don't know how many total residents there could be in a triplex with 2 bedrooms on each floor. That's a number of people with their only green space being at the very back of the property. So concerns with privacy, noise, and the lights. Also, as noted before, that parking will not be seen from the street, but it will be seen from all of us in the back on Hillside Drive. So it does not add to the quality, to the aesthetics, and it could impact the street, the value of our home, moving from a single dwelling to a triplex quite significantly, in our opinion.
And we're also concerned about the precedent it will set because of the numerous houses to the north and south, which are, one is currently vacant and the other ones are in not a great state of repair. So they're likely going to be sold, and we're concerned that they're going to be turned into similar homes like this.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, if you can just repeat your names again.
Sure. Nicole Bendaley, Bendally.
And Jason Groves, Groves.
So in terms of the fence, the 2-meter fence, and the trees being planted in the rear, so how do you feel about that in terms of addressing your concerns?
Yeah, we appreciate that. We had expressed a request before, so we appreciate that. With our main floor being 12 feet above, 14 or whatever, we're concerned that those trees will not provide that coverage of being able to see that parking lot and the cars coming and going.
And at the back of our houses are all windows. Door, so it's all glass, so any light traffic or light pollution will come right in. Whether it's on all, like, because it's sort of a split level, so the basement is partially above grade.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Groves, I guess you're talking about a height of 12 feet when the lights are much lower. I'm trying to understand.
Well, it's because the cars will come in the driveway and be however many, 70 feet back or so. There's still going to be lights that are going to come into our units. The lights aren't going to stay just down.
But he's putting up a fence there.
What we're saying is we'll be able to see over that fence given where our line of sight is in the house. And so with the parking lot there, and it doesn't allow that much more privacy for us. Yeah.
Ms. Bentley, the green space, what are you looking for at green space? You suggested that there won't be any green space left.
So there would be green space, only a small portion at the back, and most of that property would be taken up then with the parking.
Because there's an additional parking space, parking pad that's going to be added to the property.
Hold on, I'm looking to see if, Madam Chair, do we have a landscape variance here? No, I don't think we have a landscape variance. We can't deal with green space, and we have no communication from Forest Department.
And the issue with that minimal space is that would be the only place for all of those residents to congregate, would be at the very back of the property, as opposed to now it's a lot of green space in a previous single dwelling home where they could congregate anywhere. But you're moving how many people into that home with a small green space left to share at the very back, so it affects privacy and all of that.
Okay.
Those are my questions.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so next neighbor.
Good morning, committee. I want to start, I'm going to talk about parking on our...
First, I'm sorry. Introduce yourself and your address.
I'm Angela Jennings, and I live at 69 Hillside Drive, directly behind this property. We had 9 neighbors here this morning, but they had to leave, so I'm representing them as well. I'm here to talk about the parking further to the density issue. With all the single homes, our street, which I've circled there, is a dead-end court. We have upwards of 23 children, I think, on our court, and it is well used for playing. We are already very stressed for parking on our court from nearby buildings that try to park. We often don't have space at all for any of our own visitors or family. And so this is something that's very concerning to us because they're asking for a variance on the parking at their property. There's no street parking on Broadview, so the most logical place for any of the residents or their visitors at this property would be to park on our court. And it's already overstressed and maxed out. So You know, again, we're pointing to the density issue of how many residents may live in this property, and we request that it be kept to what it currently is, which is a single-family dwelling, which is what all of the other houses in the immediate area are.
Okay. Questions? No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep.
Good afternoon. Is it still morning? Good morning, everyone. My name is Labrina Stanoulis, and I'm a resident at 80 Don Valley Drive. My concern basically is we are belonging to Section E, I believe, and the forward thinking of the city and what they would like to see this area to be preserved as heritage and to have very unique spaces. We kind of are seeing to the south of us, if you go below Cosburn and below Bader, where the density is allowed to be a lot more intense. And we see development of single-family homes in those areas. So it would make sense that an area that is protected and single-family homes are desirable, that is something that we would like to see being kept at, not just now, but for the future. If we allow it to kind of be rezoned in a way, it's kind of taking away that. Why don't we consider a single-family home or even a single-family home that's extended or larger instead of going right to a triplex and then creating a kind of a domino effect with very vulnerable kind of properties that are adjacent to it. We can see it all being in front of you down the road, and these buildings will definitely take over that little area. Also, my concern about the zero setback. They do have an original building at 0, but I do believe that anything extended beyond that original wall should have a minimum setback. I think 0 is very dangerous because everyone else will be coming and asking for 0. If we have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, if I come to you and say, you know, I'm extending my house, I'd like a 0 variance. I don't know how that's going to play if we do have one in the area, and I have to come before you and say, well, there, it's allowed there. So I would hate to see everybody thinking that, you know, pushing back the homes, increasing the lengths, expanding the variances. These are not minor, and it seems that they will trickle down the road. Someone else will ask for more and more and more, and where do we stop it? So I'm asking the committee today to just say, this is not minor in nature. The variances cumulatively requested are more of a rezoning. So I would like you to consider that kind of mindset. And I think that's it. That's all I have to say.
I have a question. So you live on...
I'm on 80 Don Valley Drive. I am...
Sorry, 80 or 81?
80. 80. Yeah.
I was wondering, in terms of the character of Broadview and the fact that the agent has highlighted a number of apartment buildings and different types of uses, how would you respond to that in relation to, like, for example, the secondary study and having it as single-family residential?
If you were to put it in the context of these are established neighborhoods, there hasn't been anything built there in the last 70 years for a mixed use, and he did show, if he could put up that picture that he
Or if you can
showed
put up the map of the different uses.
The colored, yeah, that one. So if you were to look at that whole area, we'll start at the top. We have that private residency, that blue area. That's a private home. They own all that land, and they've done a beautiful, remarkable job at incorporating everything, trees and nature, and a heritage building on site and a brand new building that kind of meshes and looks just absolutely beautiful.
Sorry, how tall is that building? Is that like an
It's
apartment
only
building?
four stories high.
Oh.
It's not very high. If we go south and we look at the low-rise apartments, well, those have been there for at least 70 years. Those are not new. Those are not something that somebody decided that works in there. And he's got enough space in there for all his clients to come in, and all the parking is off-street, and he's got enough space in there, I would say, for maybe 10 to 15 cars. As you move south, now if we look at those beautiful heritage homes right there on the, let's say, on the west side, they're all basically mini mansions. They're just gorgeous, gorgeous heritage homes that have been there forever. As you go further down, even the property in question is a very, very old home. So the 0 side lot, I would say grandfathered in because a few other ones have it, is what was going on. But to say that it would be okay now, I would say is not the direction that I would like to see any kind of development in the city. As we go south, we turn into Don Valley Drive, and as you can see, our street is dead end on all sides. So we are very, I don't know how to say, like, it's very unique to have three roads, all dead ends. But it does cause a lot of issues for us because we tend to bear the brunt of, as you go south, you see the red areas there. We do have some large apartment buildings that I guess the tenants feel that paying for parking is something that they don't want to add to their costs, and tend to sprinkle their vehicles for overnight parking in the vicinity. So sometimes it fluxes. It can be very, very dense sometimes, and it can be quiet at other times. And it depends on the time of the year. For the summertime, people go away, so less, but then it intensifies. And in the wintertime, our street is really just one road. We have no sidewalks also. So we have one lane. Everyone uses that lane, cars and pedestrians. So that gives you an idea. Single-family homes, we have no sidewalks, we have an old age home there that they use the vicinity for walking. We all use the street for doing whatever we do, playing. Our children use it, our pets, we walk the street with them. Okay. It's very casual. So I'm just saying that, as you can see, there really are no triplexes. There are sprinkling of semi, but basically we're all single-family homes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. If we can have the agent come up again and respond to the various comments.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments. I know we spoke earlier about while we were outside, and we appreciate the concerns, and we are, we're aware of this is a not permitted use, and that there are going to be some concerns, but we think that we have a lot of, we've done a lot to alleviate those. So if I could touch on hopefully 8 things that I heard earlier. So the first one was the Broadview study. So the Broadview study, which was approved as of May 24th, I believe, was through OPA 343. Implemented a new site area specific policy, I think it's 509, but I can't recall, as well as associated guidelines. It locates the site within character area E, which, as one of the neighbors mentioned, is characterized by primarily single detached houses. The guidelines call for development that's 2 to 3 stories with a generous front yard landscaping. But they do call for development. This is not an area that's not meant to be developed over time. The built form policies of OPA 343 speak to the entire corridor from the south to O'Connor. They don't stop at Campbell or I can't remember the street, but they relate to the entire corridor, including up to O'Connor. The intention is this area will be redeveloped over time, and it's not meant to stay as necessarily detached houses. What we're doing here today is a 3-story dwelling with generous front yard landscaping. There's no front yard setback variance being requested. We're maintaining the existing landscape. We're actually slightly improving it, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure about that one. But regardless, this is something that's definitely anticipated and encouraged by both the OPA and by the guidelines. With respect to green space, someone mentioned the fact that the parking area in the rear is going to take away green space. We're not asking for a variance for green space. We're actually well within both the coverage permissions and the amount of landscaping that's required. I believe it's going to be permeable paving for the parking area as well, which will alleviate concerns related to rainfall and stormwater runoff. Again, we're not asking for any variances for any of that. With respect to the parking, there was talk about the fact that there's going to be light pollution and it'll interfere with the enjoyment of the properties on Hillside. The building will be 37 meters away from the Hillside properties. That's a very generous setback. The site is deceptively, it's narrow, but it's quite long, and 37 meters is a pretty long distance away. I mean, the building itself is going to be 18 meters approximately, 37 in total. It's quite a big property, and the separation alone should alleviate some of those concerns. Again, we're also providing the mature trees along the rear. We're providing a new fence as requested by the neighbors. We think that directly addresses what we asked for, and we also think that the separation will help with that in that regard as well. Finally, if you look at the photo, the oblique photo there, you can see the carport, and you can see the property with a star in the center of the site, and you can see the carport at the end. The property actually extends much further than that. But the carport itself will also help to block. It's actually a two-story carport that exists today. We're proposing one parking space within it, and it will again help to block some of the light from the parking area. And the final point of that is there are actually already a few precedents for rear yard parking in the area, including the three immediately adjacent to us in the north, 1260, 62 and 74, as well as 15 Fernwood, which is adjacent to or on the other side of the block. In relation to the parking variance that we're asking for, there's already one example which is in the package appended to my cover letter of 16 Woodville, where one parking space was required and none was provided, and that was approved. But we're not asking for a variance for visitor parking. The only variance request is for tenant parking. I should also mention the fact that we're along Broadview, which is a part of the 10-minute transit network. There's a Broadview bus which takes you to Broadview Station. Google Maps told me 3 minutes. It might be a little bit longer depending on what time of day, but it's a short bus ride to Broadview Station. It's about a 25-minute walk to Broadview Station, and it's along the 10-minute frequent transit network. Finally, Mr. Kotov will be living in the ground floor unit and will not be renting to a tenant that wants a car but can't get one. It's in his interest and his interest of the tenant moving in to not rent a unit where he can't park his car, or he or she can't park the car. I mean, logically, and I made this argument before, I know it's not always taken, but if you don't have a car, why would you, in your right mind, rent a unit where you can't park it on your site? You can't get a parking permit on street. I've checked. I called the parking permit office. So why would you even consider renting that unit if you can't park your car with ease? Finally, there's talking about density and number of people that are going to be living there. We're not asking for a density variance. Again, the proposed density is 0.51, whereas permission is 0.75. About 2/3 of what's actually permitted on the site. So in terms of density, we're actually quite low. Again, we're not asking for a coverage variance. The proposed coverage is 30.47, so about 30.5, whereas the permission is 35%. As for the 0-meter setback, I agree that we're asking for a variance for a 0-meter setback from bylaw from the East York bylaw. However, we're not asking for a variance for side yard setback from the citywide zoning bylaw, because 569/2013 permits a side yard setback that exists today to be continued. And we are continuing a 0-meter setback that exists today. And if you can pull up the aerial, the front aerial, to show us how it looks. You can see that the proposed building or the existing building is already built to the south lot line, and that setback will be continued to the rear. And finally, I just want to make a point about apartment buildings and the fact that there's one point about the fact that all the apartment buildings in the area are not recent. They're very from a long time ago. To me, that maybe it's just a bit less investment in the area in the past little while. And I would mention that the 3 units are being proposed. One is...
I'm going to ask you just to quickly wrap up.
Last point.
Okay.
There are 3 units. The bottom one is at 1,900 square feet, including the basement. The middle one on the second floor is 949 square feet, 3-bedroom unit, and the one on the top floor with the slope roof is 631 square feet. These are family-sized units. They're coming to the area where there hasn't been a lot of recent apartment-style development, but these are grade-oriented. They're low-rise. They're basically essentially what the city is looking for.
Okay. Okay, do we have any other questions? I have a question in terms of the carport. Is that on the subject property or on the neighbors?
On the subject property.
On the subject property, okay. And then, so there's no variance for a triplex? No.
There is a variance for the way that the zoning examiner proposed to do it would be through a secondary dwelling. Essentially permitting 2 secondary dwellings as opposed to 1.
Oh, I see. Okay. Questions? If not, we'll have a discussion. Okay, so we'll be in committee and have a discussion, and then I'll need a motion. Okay. Anyone like to start?
I know this is an interesting proposal. I really have some difficulty with it, in particular that the study was done in 2016 to identify what's called the Broadview study. The proposal has a cumulative number of variance requests. I think, what's it, 16 or something? Having had the Broadview study, which addresses the requirement of the community, when you have such requests that delineates and move away from the study, I have a problem with what constitute a cumulative effect and what constitute the change to the character of the neighborhood. I know that I'm not really in agreement with what some of the opponents say about the zero effect within the city, because that's the reality of what happened. But the cumulative effect of this application has moved well beyond what's normal for a community, and so I would have some problem with it.
Any other comments?
I would agree with some of the comments made by my colleague. I find that the length is somewhat disturbing to me in comparison to even the comparables that I saw in the materials we had didn't appear to be that long. The house next door, I'm conflicted on this because the house next door is quite large. But it's also on a wider lot, but it's taking up quite a bit of space of the lot. And then 3 units, yes, we allow a second unit so they can have the 2, but the third, I'm not sure. And then hearing about the studies that have been done in terms of keeping single-family homes in the area. So both sides have some good arguments to be made, and in our materials as well, in terms of support and opposition, it pretty much balances out on this application.
So my perspective is I'm also quite conflicted. I hear the neighbors' concerns. I mean, the only thing I would like to add is on Broadview Avenue. Mm-hmm. So I feel like on Hillsdale, this would totally be out of character of the street. But on Broadview Avenue, as the agents have highlighted, there is a number of apartments. There is the seniors facility. I mean, it is a 4-lane street, which is quite busy. I do believe like triplexes are the way to go in terms of sensible intensification on streets, particularly like Broadview, that are not necessarily, don't have the quiet residential character that streets adjacent to it might. I mean, there is no density variance, so I think that's quite notable. And I think in terms of being able to accommodate 2 parking lots, I feel like the site makes sense for that, because We don't have a soft landscaping variance, but yet we're still accommodating some parking for the potential units. And the units are not small size units. They're decent units for families to rent in the city, which I feel speaks to our official plan policies in terms of affordability. Any other concerns?
I think the time has come probably for a motion then.
Okay, so entertain the motion.
I am going to move refusal of the application, and I'm going to hinge mine on the official plan. This is a step too far away from the existing character of the area, and that as such it is not within the spirit and intent of the official plan.
Okay, so motion to refuse has been moved by Mr. Carlson. Do we have a seconder?
I second it.
Seconded, all in favor?
You guys are in favor?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to support it as well.
Okay, and I will dissent.
Well, you have to.
So the application has been refused. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Okay, panel members, would you like a quick break, or would you like to proceed? We have 3 items left.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll... Sure.
So we're item 7.
Yeah.
The city website, there was a glitch, so apparently there's more letters on file that the neighbors don't want to show me, so I'd like to see any other correspondence. It said 3 letters of objection, and each one was the same letter. Apparently that's not the case.
So if you can speak to the staff members,
okay,
and they'll share the
Who would I
package with
speak
you. Anita or her assistant. Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break, so we'll begin 15:02. Sure.
Based on our discussion, can we do that quickly before you go on your break?
Is that okay? Okay, sure. Okay, sure. What item is that?
Item 14.
We're just going to do first.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, so item number 14, Gough Avenue.
Yes, can we defer it sine die? We met with the neighbors.
Sorry.
Espanol, the agent.
Where's your opposition?
They're right here.
Okay.
And are you in agreement with the deferral?
We are in agreement with
Okay.
Item 14?
Yes.
14.
Just one name.
Tom Zerofios. 152 Gough Avenue.
Okay, so the joint, okay.
The deferral would, because of the discussion with the owners, the neighbors and stuff, we're moving the house forward 4 feet, which would introduce a new front yard setback, and that would alleviate enough pressure from the neighbors, and we'll modify everything to meet the neighbors' needs.
We generally defer 3 to 6 months, not...
Yes, we know that.
Is that...
Yeah.
Okay.
We're aware. We talked to Daniel already, and we gave adjustment.
Okay.
You, Madam Chair, they may want to discuss the revisions with the area planner before we reschedule, just to make sure they're okay with the dwelling coming closer to the front lot line.
We will, yes.
Okay, so, so panel members?
Through you, Madam Chair, the applicant has had a conversation outside with the opposition. Everybody's in agreement, and they want to make revisions, so I think we should give them the opportunity, and I will be move deferral, including recirculation fees for 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So motion to defer has been moved by Ms. Oman, second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? Okay, so the application has been deferred. Thank you.
Very much.
Good luck. Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll still begin 15:02, and we'll move forward with item number 6 when we come back. so we're going to begin with item number 6, 205 DeGrassi Street. If we can have the agent or applicant please come up and the contesting parties sit on my left. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, set plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have the cover letter from the planner. We have staff report from community planning and urban forestry. We have 3 form letters in support from owners or occupants on DeGrassi Street. We also have correspondence and concern interest from 201 DeGrassi Street. And we have opposition from 56E West Avenue. Okay, if you can please introduce yourself and your address.
Good morning. My name is Martin Rendell. I'm the agent for the applicant, and I've handed in a notice card with my information. The proposal before you today are for variances to provide for the construction of a new 3-story dwelling and a carport. The variances, as you'll see from the notice and my cover letter, basically are grouped into 2 areas. The first one deals, and the height variances are all under the new bylaw, the harmonized bylaw, and they deal with the absolute height of the house to the peak, which on the elevation on the overhead there deals with that red triangle, which exceeds the maximum 12-meter height. It's 12.95. And then the other variances relate to the height of various main walls over the height of 9.5, and I've illustrated there as well where the 9.5 meter height is in relation to the main wall heights. The second pair of variances deals with the width of the driveway, and it deals with, you can see on the site plan here, it's actually the yellow area there, totally on my client's property, which is in the backyard, and it's the width of the paved area leading to the parking space inside the carport. So it exceeds the 2.6 meter width, because as you can see, it's offset to the mutual driveway, so you need some room to maneuver, and it matches the width of the car space inside the garage, which is 3.2 meters, which is the size of an obstructed parking space under the bylaw. So the driveway width variance is, I'm only pointing that out because it's different than the typical ones I think you see where the driveway at the street or whatever is wanting to be wider. Nothing is changing in terms of the width of the driveway at the street or the curb, because that is governed. This is a mutual driveway with existing rights of way that are in place. So it's, I would suggest that's more technical in nature. You've mentioned the various submissions that you have, and planning staff had no concerns about this. They inserted a condition about the height of the height variance to ensure that in fact it was a sloped roof, and that's really our intention here. Is the little red triangle there is to provide for a sloped roof, which is something that the bylaw encourages in these areas, and as the planning staff report points out, is consistent with the character of roofs within the area. The heights of the walls, again, are in relation to the 3-story building proposed. In both bylaws, there is no regulation of the number of stories. It's simply the envelope that's being proposed, and again, it's illustrated here. There are no variances for setbacks. There's no variances for building length or density. All of those comply. And as I've outlined in my letter, I believe it is compatible with the area and consistent with the official plan and all the associated other tests of the Planning Act.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions and then to speak after the neighbor speaks.
I think because of timing, we'll just wait for the questions
Okay.
at the end. Yeah, if we can have the neighbor please come up, introduce himself and his address, and then outline some of his main concerns.
Good morning. My name is David Cardilla, and I reside at 56H West Avenue. I submitted a letter of opposition earlier in the week, which may or may not have made it into your working files this morning, but it should be there now. So I'll just keep my remarks short.
No, we have it.
I'm one of 9 units. We're in a townhouse complex and behind the subject property, and those properties have existed there for about 30 years now. In this case, the developer proposes a tear down of a small 2-story building and replace it with a 3-story building, which from my perspective is quite a significant change from what exists today. I want to be clear that as the property has been sitting there vacant, I'm fully supportive of a redevelopment of the property within reason. My ask as the property owner behind is that for reasons of privacy and also for protection of a pretty unique skyline view in the winter in particular, that the builder be restricted to build to the current bylaw height. Otherwise, I have no issues with the proposed redevelopment. My main interest is really just to contain the proposed height of the building that will go in behind me. And that's all I have to say. That's summarized in my submission.
Okay, thank you. I just have one quick question. So how do you feel about that only small portion of the pitch roof will go beyond the bylaw?
My preference would be to keep it as low as possible. My view is going to be subject to a substantial change as it is. So my preference would be that the bylaw be respected.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, so if we can have the agent please come up and respond.
I'm just putting up there from Google Earth, you can see 205 DeGrassi, the subject property with the bubble on there, but you can see the gentleman's house is sort of at the top there, the townhouses that are in there. You can see in the intervening area, trees, etc., that provide both privacy and the normal condition that we have in neighborhoods. So it's my respectful submission that with respect to views and other matters, the additional height in terms of the absolute height to the peak, which is about the height of the desk here, does not materially affect the views currently enjoyed by other neighbors and properties in the area. And in terms of the neighbor's suggestion of removing it, I think that's a reverse step in terms of design, in terms of a less attractive and less sensible roof in terms of a traditional sloped roof design, which again is intended, as again planning staff point out to them, this is an important aspect of retaining and being consistent with the existing physical character of DeGrassi Street in the neighborhood, which is one of the official plan tests.
Quick question, in terms of the 2 houses down, the pitched roof that seems quite tall, how will your house relate to that building in terms of height? Would it be similar?
One to the, on the right on that picture, the
Yeah, the one with the one. Yeah, this one. Yeah.
This one here.
Yeah. I'm going to ask the architect, Mr. Fong.
We are higher. I can't say precisely what height we are, but we will be slightly higher than what's there.
Okay. Okay, panel members, any other questions?
What about the opaque screening? Because staff is...
Yeah, we're fine with the conditions of planning and the urban forestry conditions.
And you are saying that once you have those conditions in place, you won't be affecting the neighbor here and back neighbor here with regards to privacy?
Well, the condition of staff for the 1.5 meter opaque fencing is a standard condition and requirement of many applications in the city, and I have to take from that that that's deemed by the city to be a reasonable and appropriate way of dealing with these issues. At the same time, you only have to look at the air photo to know that neighbors can see one another's properties wherever they are on their property, in their house, looking out over other properties. The issue is, does the additional height and other measures unduly impact the privacy of other properties? In my submission, it doesn't, particularly in the context of neighborhoods like this on DeGrassi that are very tight lot fabric, and the character of buildings and the proximity of buildings to one another is much tighter than you would have in a more suburban setting. and the fact that you have mature trees in the yards that also serve to buffer views and other matters.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, discussion or a motion.
I always have qualms about exceeding main wall and total height in a residential context, but this does on balance seem appropriate and more in keeping with the character of the area than something that is strictly compliant would be. I would be prepared to move approval.
Any other comments?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Edmund.
All right. I approve of the application as I believe it to be minor in nature and within the intent of the official plan.
Including?
And that is including forestry condition number 3 and the planning condition for
May 30.
that the height 12.95 be limited to the pitched roof and opaque screening.
Okay, a motion.
Letter dated May 30th.
Okay, a motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Carlson, including the outline condition. It has been seconded by Ms. Oman. All in favor? The application has been approved. Thank you for coming out. Okay, so we'll move forward with item number 7, 228 Lonsmount Drive. So the committee has in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We also have the staff report from Urban Forestry. We have correspondence in interest / concern from 223 Lonsmount Drive. We have correspondence in opposition from 223, 226, and 227 Lonsmount Drive. And if we can have the opposing parties to come to my left-hand side. And we'll begin with your name and address in that presentation.
So Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road. I'm the architect.
Okay, sorry, just before we proceed, how many people are applying to speak today? 2. Okay, great. Just please make sure to stick to the planning issues and not to overlap yourself in terms of.
Okay, so should I wait?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Actually,
it's important he hear.
I think maybe he needs to walk around, so hopefully he'll be listening. When
Okay, so first I'm going to just start out with, we've talked outside. They think the house should comply with all the variances. That's not why we're here. I do want to start by talking about this drawing, so hopefully you can hear me. So just to, if you can see the shaded area, that is the allowable building envelope. So this is, believe it or not a corner lot. This is the frontage. This is the side yard. This is the side yard. There's no rear lot line. It's a lot point. So in speaking to the neighbors, I've gone door to door, I've dropped off letters. It was apparent that every one of the neighbors didn't understand the application. So with some understanding, views changed. So just to understand that is the required setback. The existing house does not comply with the bylaw. Obviously we're tearing down that house, so that could be deemed irrelevant. The back of the house basically lines up with the old house. The front of the house is actually further back, depending on how you look at it, except for right here, but where measured front yard is on the curve. As well as length, the house really isn't 22.42 meters long, it's 17.27 meters long, but the way the bylaw calculates it, it's 22. So you're allowed a 1.2 meter side yard setback, a 1.2 meter side yard setback. When we started the project, we looked at the locations of the adjacent houses, and my opinion as an architect and a guy who does a lot of houses in Forest Hill and in the city of Toronto, never mind Forest Hill, this is good planning. We're trying to preserve backyard views for this neighbor I think everyone will agree that this is potentially what is known as the backyard, even though it's considered a side yard. When I went to speak to this neighbor, she thought the house was coming to here. This is a basically at-grade deck. When I explained that to her, she said, oh, that's different. She's still objecting to all the variances, but I don't think she was at all aware that this is the allowable side yard setback. She talked about preserving this open space for her views, and so that's how we designed the house. The people that are here to speak to you today all live across the street, and so they're, I think, mostly concerned about the front yard setback. So I will take you through some changes. The other thing I wanted to point out is 7 of the 18 variances you're going to hear about are all to do with the front porch and stairs. I point out that the existing house would have the same variances. I don't really understand why the bylaw limits the width of stairs to not be as wide as a stoop. It makes no sense. So let me just go through. We are going to eliminate variance 3 and 4.
569?
What's that?
Under the new bylaw?
Yes, yes. We are going to eliminate the 3-car garage and make it a 2-car garage. So that eliminates number 10 and number 11.
Sorry, what, number 10?
And 11 of the new bylaw.
Vehicle entrances and driveway width?
Yes. So I don't know, there's some weird things here. I didn't know you weren't allowed a 3-car garage, but I've spoken to my client. She's okay with a 2-car now. And so we don't need the extra wide driveway. So those are the changes. The only other change to number 1 of the old bylaw, 4386, it would be 11.0 meters instead of 11.10.
11.03 meters, did you say?
11.00.
Oh,
I guess I'll quickly take you through the variances. Front yard setback is to that pinch point here. I was speaking to some of the neighbors. We are extending the house towards the front. We still believe that there's a safe view of the curve. We are trying to preserve backyard and lining up because this is the only lot that really has this severe curve. Corner lots like this have front yard setbacks, but that's, we're way behind the setback here. The condition, yes, it is a little bit worse than the existing to the people across the street, but if we push the house back, then I believe these 2 neighbors will object. So I tried to use good planning principles. So we're at 1.2 meters here, and that's what we're asking for. It's just a pinch point. Front yard setback, sorry, same thing. The first one was to the canopy, and the first variance was to the canopy, sorry, and the second one is to the corner of the lot. Minimum rear yard setback is 4.03. That is measured from this corner, from the point, and that's only for the pool. So the house complies. The actual setback that we have on the house from the corner is 11.48 to built form.
So is the deck elevated or is it at grade?
It's virtually at grade. You can see it in the elevation. It's a little bit above grade, but we can smooth that out, whatever. But you can see it says there 11.48 is the actual setback from the point. You see that right here. To the built form, the mass. I never understand this variance 6. I've asked examiners to explain it to me, but it's just the steps, and we're on a hill. All the neighbors on this side of the street that are on the hill have these big wide steps and probably have the same variances. I don't think there's any real impact on that. Again, number 7 is the same thing. It's, we do our steps the same width as our stoop. I don't think there's any harm done to the neighborhood. Number 8 is to the front porch, again, to this pinch point here. It's to here.
Okay, Mr. Rosso, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay.
Well,
I can...
If this comes up during the question period, you can explain further. So if you can please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Noah Shane. I'm across the street from the subject property, although that's not specific, but I live at 221 Lonsmount.
Okay.
So, my friend and I are going to speak on behalf of all of a number of the neighbors on this street. We had a meeting among us to discuss these issues, and even though there's maybe only 5 or 6 of us here today, there was a room full of us earlier this week to discuss our concerns. And my colleague can get into that in more detail. What I really wanted to do when I came to you to suggest what I was opposed to was parse through it and say, these ones are okay, these ones are not, these are where my concerns are. The problem with doing that is, it doesn't, suggesting that you're okay with one of them is difficult when the problem is the totality of what they all do. And the totality of what all these variances do in this circumstance is provide for a house or a home which is contrary to the bylaw in so many respects and in such a high degree that it's just a gross use of the space relative to what the bylaw requires, in my view. While I agree that there are no variances for density, so in terms of the whole size of the house, there's no objection. The objection is largely how it fits into the lot and how that lot fits into the natural neighborhood. So, for example, the stoop and the steps and the pinch point bring the house closer to the street. And the fact that the height is 4 meters higher than the existing home results in a very large house very close to the street. The fact that the length is also substantially larger than what the bylaw permits means, in effect, it's a very large house very close to the street and very imposing on this natural curve, which is fronts on 6 or 8 houses as opposed to just being 1 or 2 in each direction. That, what has been put up is, I believe, the front elevation of the house. It has a 3rd floor, which, according to what I can understand, is actually fake. I mean, those are fake windows. It's an empty roof. So there's an addition of a number of meters of space there purely for aesthetics. But the result is, of course, that when one looks at this house from the 6 or 8 houses along the curve, what they see is this enormous house with a very tall roof, quite close to the street, 1.2 meters back from the lot line. And it just appears to be sort of an ogre in the inside corner of this curve, which is really the crux of this whole street. Everything goes around this curve and therefore around this house. And to have a house that is offside of the bylaws in so many respects, both individually on those bylaw variances and collectively, is, in my view, an inappropriate approval. While as I mentioned, density is not an issue from these plans. So I think what we would suspect is there's a way to get this livable space onto this lot without necessitating the bylaw, the variances that have been sought today. If you look at that front elevation, I know the driveway that Mr. Rose commented that the 3rd garage would be eliminated, and that's helpful. But the fact remains that the driveway variances, the porch variances, the canopy variances, the height variances, the setback variances, all combine to give the effect of an enormous house shoehorned into the front of a lot, which was never meant to be used for a home of this size or character. And so I think my colleague is going to speak further on sort of the nature of the planning principles in general, but I think from the neighbor's view of actual construction of the house, or the design of the house, the way it's been designed, although aesthetically certainly we make no comment, the the variances required here are far in excess of what we think is reasonable or, frankly, necessary to put a magnificent house of usable size and space on that site.
Mr. Shane, yeah, but he has withdrawn a height variance number.
Pardon?
The agent has deleted the variance.
I think that was under one of the bylaws, but I think the City of Toronto bylaw provides that it can't be higher than the existing dwelling. So I think the existing is 7.25 meters, and I think that the proposed is 11.
Yeah, variance one.
Yes, yeah, and he changed it to 11 meters.
Oh, well, it says 11.1 in the submission, but I think that was changed to 11.
Yeah.
So, but in any event, I mean, I think that's about 3.5 meters.
Okay, I just have a question in regards to the agent's explanation about the depth of the house, that the house actually at 17.24 meters rather than the 21 because that includes the deck. Can you respond to that in terms of your concerns?
I think certainly, thank you. I think the concern still stands. The concern is that the house with the deck, without the deck, with the garages, without the garages, is simply, in our view, too big and too imposing to be placed that close to the street. And so if the exact dimensions of the house without the deck were not 1 meter from the lot line, we might be having a different conversation. But that's not what was proposed. All we can comment on is what was proposed. And what's proposed here is to bring a very large, very tall house right up to the street. When I think what you'll find from the diagram that was put up by the applicant is that there is plenty of buildable space on that lot.
Okay, thank you.
With permission for maybe 1 minute of comments. Firstly, thank you. We did have a good conversation.
If you can introduce yourself again.
Pardon me. My name is Takashi Yamashita. My wife and I live at 233 Lonsmount Drive. I have in front of me here a letter from Judy Nyman and Harley Mintz, who live at 226 Lonsmount Drive. They live on the immediate south. But I just want to make a quick comment that by no means of us not communicating any information that's in public record, by no means are we trying to obstruct justice or whatever the process would be there. The words from the author of this letter from Judy was she didn't know what other letters may have been submitted, and she didn't want her singularity involved in an exchange with an agent. So she just didn't have perfect information, nor do I, and so she just asked me to keep that private unless knowingly all information was exchanged. So that's just a comment. Her 4 points briefly was similar, a 3-car garage, and we thank the applicant for taking that under consideration. She has a view of changing the very nature of the property, and I think by the very nature of the property, she's describing that as the old Cedarvale Ravine. The City of Toronto Cedarvale Ravine Park bends naturally around this area. The reason that there's a curve in the street is not a human-made decision. This is the way the earth bends, and the site rises and lowers accordingly. And so she thinks just kind of the character of the area, the street is changing from the as proposed. She makes a comment here. It just doesn't look like any others negatively impact. It would change other mature trees on the land. I just want to offer her comments because she's asked me to represent. And I think just in very similar in summary, there's when we look at this, I think the one drawing that the agent very thoughtfully put up is the total footprint of the house, and I'm not referring to the pool or deck or any other ancillary kind of areas, is 239 square meters. There's ample other area, more than 239 square meters to accommodate another design. And so our hope would be is that seeing the major encroachment, I guess, on that front yard, is it's not rationally obvious to us why would that be the final outcome of that design process, that having it somewhere else in the site. We're thrilled about the new development. We're not here to stand in the way of that. We understand various economic or other circumstances that may come with that. It's just, we would just invite or welcome a conversation with the architect and others to consider a plan that's within the so-called Bill 2 rights area, given the size of that area is more than sufficient than the proposed. So overall, we think these are not minor with speed bump introduction. So there's a lot of children, elderly in the area, and the setbacks we think are kind of part of that, of whether it's character or whether it's just a feeling of living on the street. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's truly real. We think that the planning, the physical opportunity given further back on the site or in other locations of the site, we don't have any suggestions of what that should be. The talent to deliver that other alternative, if that's the wishes of the committee, the talent exists. There's great architects and builders on this project, and we're thrilled of that competency. It's really just where it is as this proposal. Thank you.
Okay.
Yamashita.
Yes, sir.
The character of this house, we have something, correct me if you wish, based on what he's shown us, it's like a square house that's sitting in a circular street. You see how where he said that the existing end, then on the left hand side.
Yes.
The north, it's. And that causes us to have to work with, which it exists. So if it exists, it's there. It causes us then to have to try and work around something that fancies the neighborhood. And the other thing is the streetcar garage. I think is now accepted 2 cars instead of 3. So can you address those issues? Footprint of the house.
I think the issue here is the awkwardness of the lot itself. So for the allowable building form already, the existing is already beyond the provisions of the bylaw. But what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would like the house to be located where the current house is, or step back a little from the front yard, or what is your preference? Because it would be pretty much impossible to fit a house within the building as of right restriction.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to comment on it. The total area of that shaded area is much larger than 239 square feet of footprint. So if the assumption is keep a house a box, then that's a little bit of an intellectual exercise of how do you fit a box on the curve. So I can't comment about what other configuration impact it would have. That would be between that owner and their architect to come up with that solution. But just on the pure, clear and present, observable amount of available other area, where that opportunity looks to be, within good planning of the house that I was representing as well, 226. That's its darker footprint outline there. There's opportunities in different locations, and we're not here to judge how or even really offer a golf tip of where that should go. I think that does, as it's presented, we just think the footprint is in the wrong spot. At least that part of it is, and there's enough area and creativity in the world to I think properly look through multiple planning solutions. I think there could be multiple. You're only going to build one house, but I bet you there's more than one solution that would be a great planning outcome. There is not just one answer here. So our encouragement is for more study, I guess, and we're not trying to be imposing burdens on anybody else, but having that would be a key thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. So if we can have the agent please come up and respond to the concerns that were raised.
First thing I want to address is that, you've seen me here before. I come to you with buildings with higher densities and usually a height variance. We've eliminated the height variance in the new bylaw, which is usually the hardest one for me to deal with. By the way, that bylaw has been appealed, and the city has been instructed to go back and deal with the Ontario Association of Architects to resolve it. The other bylaw regards to height is number 1 of the old bylaw. I have never in my career seen this before. There must be something very specific to this lot, but it says within Forest Hill, a replacement can't be higher than the existing building. I've never seen this before. I can tell you that if you were to build the exact same house today under the building code, you would have to be higher. So it would be impossible if this house burnt down and the insurance had to build it again. You would have to be probably upwards of a meter higher for building code, insulation, structure. So I also point out that the typical height limit, if this wasn't the bylaw, would be 10 meters, and we're 9.45 measured to the midpoint. So we're under what is normally the height limit. I also want to point out that planning staff and the councillor have no objections to this. And my guess is because they understand it's a difficult site. I want to point out something on the setbacks that, I don't know if you can see all this. So, can this go up and still be focused?
Yeah, I think you can zoom in and zoom out. I believe it's at the top, but...
Here, I think you know what? Can I just show it to you here?
And as long as you can show it too.
Yeah. So if you see the curve of the street, these houses are curved, they're stepping back. Here's the adjacent neighbor which steps back, which actually he should be forward because there's more of a setback here. We're taking the average of this house and this house. By the way, this house is derelict and for sale now, so it will be changing. So the fact that we would want to bring our house to here actually makes sense if you were to curve it like that.
So can we see that on the projector? Because I would like to see how far the proposed development would stick off from the existing.
I have to bring it higher away. No, it's not zoomed.
So I think you have to flip it. Oh, you haven't put it.
But it doesn't fit. So you can't see.
It's okay. We understand your justification.
So in theory, this house, if you follow the pattern, following this street here, should be up here. If you follow this curve that's on the street here, and then if you were to follow this, yes, we'd still have a little bit of a variance, but we're just coming out to here. We're behind this wall of the house here. We're behind where the existing house is here. And the reality is, the most important thing for me looking at this is these two people are the most affected. The people that are here today are all across the street and they live on ravines. So if we push this house right to here, this would be awful for this neighbor. And the worst thing you could ever do to this lot, because his backyard would have all wall. So there are some times when the as of right just isn't good planning. And that's why the city planner, in particular, not so much the councillor, is supporting this application, because I think they believe, as I do, that this is an appropriate development as it fits into the lots. I mean, I'm not sure why the gentleman that spoke first, he lives across the street here. If I were to do what he's asking for, he'd see no trees, he'd be all wall. I mean, I think he should embrace the fact that we're trying to work with the curve and that he would have trees to look at rather than a built form, you know, but whatever. The bottom line is every neighbor has a different agenda. One neighbor wants us to move it forward, one wants us to move it back. I think in my practice, I've tried to use good planning principles. So that addresses the front yard setback at that pinch point. The only other, there was no real objections other than 18 variances or whatever, and we've dropped some. 7 of them were for the front porch, and the existing house has those same variances. Was the height. We're under 10 meters in the old bylaw. We are under 11 meters, or we're at 11 meters in the new bylaw. The first gentleman misspoke. We are not 4 meters higher than the existing house. We're 4 meters higher than, I don't know what number he gave, 7.2, I don't know where he got that from. But we are, I think, 2 meters higher than the existing house. But the bylaw doesn't say how high we are above the existing house. It says we are higher than the existing house. So we are not 4 meters above the existing house. We're 2 feet higher than the neighbor, than this neighbor. We're only 2 feet higher than them. And, by the way, on the elevation, is that elevation still here? That is more than, the view from the street will be of this deck line. This 2 1/4, 12 slope there is only there for the old bylaw. This is allowed to be like 2% under the new bylaw. But to comply with both bylaws, I have to have a 2 1/4 slope. You know, it's better that the clients could build this with a slope to here, which would mean we are lower than the house next door to us.
Okay.
And you won't see this. There's no way anyone could see this. This is the real impact of that.
Okay, I just have a quick question in regards to 226. So you mentioned that you were communicating with that property owner, and you made adjustments to your proposal based on that communication. Yet we have a letter of objection. Also, one of the contesting parties was mentioning that he was representing that house as well.
So all I can tell you is I don't think she really understands the issues. She said to me, "Oh, I thought your house was set back 3 meters, 4 meters. She thought this is where our house was. I told her this is where our house is, and it's 11.48 meters back. She said, "Oh, that makes me feel a lot better." She said, "I don't know if we're going to object or not." She did email me and said, "I'm sorry, I'm still going to object." So her objection is online, but I know that if what the neighbors are asking me that I push this house all the way back here, she will be very unhappy, as will this property owner.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, panel members?
Mr. Rose, the height, you said there's a replacement building bylaw that says you can't build beyond what's there before.
That it's very, like, I don't know where this came from.
Then shouldn't you be seeking a zoning regulation change to be able to address that?
No, because I assume once they deal with the appeal of the bylaw, the old bylaw will be, a lot of the things in the old bylaw that were objected to are now law. So when they resolve the height bylaw, the old bylaw gets thrown out. So it wouldn't be a rezoning. It's just, the difference for you and me is that usually it's a number. How much higher are you than the permitted? I'm 9.45. 10 meters would be the normal height limit in this area. So I'm at 9.45. I got to tell you, I've never seen this before, so it was unique to me. I don't know if it's site-specific or this little area, but you cannot build a house today the same way they built a house back then. The roof trusses, the roof joists were 2x4s. You have to use 2x12s at a minimum. Floor joists were 2x8s. You have to use 2x12s at a minimum. Insulation values keep going up. So even to rebuild that house, you couldn't comply with that bylaw.
Okay. Any other questions? If there's no more questions, we're in committee for discussion.
Did we get it done?
No. The process is...
Okay. Through you, Madam Chair, I actually visited the site, and this area is in transition. There were some new homes, I believe 2 of them, that were the I call them box-style homes, for lack of a better word. I was glad you removed the garage, because although I did see an older house, I believe it was on the northwest corner at Montclair, that I think had a 3rd garage, except it's got lawn in front of it, so you can barely see it. So even that had me looking at this with the 3 garages, that, okay, there is something there that's smaller and older, but it does have that concept of the 3rd garage, although I am pleased that it was removed. There are a lot of variances, although if you take it in the context of this lot, as was said, it's difficult to build anything here without variances. I think the design is also trying to respect the like the actual area, the neighborhood. I did see that the grade is slightly higher, but again, it's a new home, new construction that's going to stand out in any case, just because of the coloring, and this home is very, it's quite dark. It's darker, so it's harder to see. It's quite a change. So I don't see this as like being out of character, particularly in terms of the changes that are happening, especially with those very modern style homes on the street already.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments?
The only thing I can say, it's a good thing you left this one till the last one.
Well, hopefully you'll have lunch, so.
Yes. It is a difficult. We had good presentations from both parties. We had very good presentation from the applicant, a good presentation from the opposition. I think we are into a phase of bylaw changes. I'm not too sure where we stand with regards to the city's zoning bylaw in view of the changes that are supposed to take place, that's supposed to address new developments of this nature. My difficulty here really is the number of variances that, in effect, with so many minor variances, then you end up with what's major. So that's really my difficulty in this matter.
Any other comments?
We reduce the number of variances?
I mean, the only thing I would like to add is I echo my panel members' comments. The issue of the landscaping and the fact that there is going to be cutting the physical feature, changes of the physical landscape, I think also would require some consideration because, as mentioned by guidelines, it is part of the character of the neighborhood, and cutting out that land will change that character.
Madam Chair, can I show you pictures of what's next door? Because it's...
Sorry, we're already in committee.
Nobody brought it up, so I didn't.
So that's the only thing I wanted to add to the discussion is transforming that physical landscape, how that will impact the neighborhood and the character of the street.
The application, purpose of the application is also in question. It's an integral 3-car below-grade garage with it's a purpose, and it has not been changed.
That's something that we can do.
That's a technical variance.
Yeah, just
it's a positive slope to the street.
Sorry, we're already in committee, but the staff members can simply just change that to 2-car below-grade garage.
Well, it's been changed to 2-car.
2-car.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just change that.
Exactly. It's not. Okay, so any other comments? If not, we'll need a motion.
Okay. Well, through you, Madam Chair, I do feel that both sides presented valid arguments, and I understand change is difficult. I do feel that the applicant provided sufficient evidence that supports why these variances are needed in order to build this house, and I would move approval, and then changing the purpose to a 2-car below-grade garage, and removing variance number 3 and 4 under bylaw 569/2013, removing variances 10 and 11 under the same bylaw, and revising variance number 1 under bylaw 43886 to read 1.0 meters,
11.0.
including forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Okay, so a motion to,
Sorry, 11, what did I say?
You said 1.
Sorry.
11
That would be
That would be bad.
really
so a motion to approve this amended variance application with the various conditions has been proposed by Ms. Omen. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor? Dissent? Okay, Mr. Russell dissents. Okay, so the application, the amended application has been approved. Thank you for coming out.